speaking in the city square, trying to tell somebody that he cares. Can you blame the voice of youth for asking what is true? Yeah, the ones that you're calling wild are gonna be the leaders in a little while. When will the lonely voice of youth cry, what is true? This our world's waking to a newborn babe, and I solemnly swear it'll be their way. You better help that voice of youth find what is true. And the lonely voice of youth cries, what is true?
All right. Well, a little bit of panic. Tried to fix that little intro video. Wanted to make a few changes. Did a bunch of video work minutes before we started. And then it was a little mess up. So I had to go back to the original one. Got my very mid Hobbit on the board for you. Got my San Pellegrino. All right. Hope everybody has some. Got some in the Muppet Cup. Got to have a Muppet Cup. If you don't have a Muppet Cup, visit my store where I have Muppet Cups in white and black. I got my chocolate peanut butter cup. Yum, yum. Delicious stuff. I'll have that later. I got some tea from the Table Rock Tea Company. This is wintergreen. Good stuff. Picked in the middle of winter. Very strange. Very strange. No live streams for the next 2 weeks. Going to a wedding next week in Texas. And then I'm in Tarpon Springs for the Symbolic World Summit. Hope to see people there. In fact, I know I'm going to see a bunch of people there. Some people are flying in from Ireland. So that'll be fun. So yeah, I got to fix that video. Damn it. Somehow the video editor put 7 seconds of dead air in front. I was like, what? I didn't find that out until I played it on here. And then I went, panic. I'm good at panicking. But I did actually edit it. So I was all proud of myself. And then screwed it up at the end. Always check your work. Always check your work, which sort of a boring thing, right? It's like, ooh, the people that check the work, they're not good enough to do the work. Sometimes that's true. They're kind of mediocre, which is the topic, mediocrity. So let me ask you a question. How do you think this YouTube channel is going? Am I maintaining my stats? Losing subs and viewers? Gaining them? I think it's mediocre at best, or am I mid? Now, hold on. Like, this isn't a bad thing. I'm a contentedness stoic. So this idea of mediocrity is not a bad thing. Keep in mind as well that maintaining my YouTube channel takes effort. I'm still doing lots of work, as are a bunch of other people who help me. My editor, Sally Joe, Manuel, Adam, bounce ideas off Father Eric here. There's tons of people involved in, helping me out in various ways. Apparently, no one to check my video editing 15 minutes before I'm about, actually 10 minutes before I'm about to go on. No surprise. Foolish hubris on my part. A push for success in light of the lack of mediocrity. And yeah, this channel's, we'll say, much less work than it was in the beginning. And that's true. But we're still doing stuff. Like things still need to be edited. And I do have Plato's Cave is edited. Looks like it's going to get released. My editor seems to think it's okay this time. I did record it twice. The first one I threw out, I'm like, nah. I didn't throw it out. I still have it, but I was like, nah, not good enough. Uh, but it does take maintenance. And look, I mean, am I the world's best software engineer? No, probably mediocre. Uh, it's okay. It's not a bad thing. Someone's got to check the work. Someone's got to sweep the floors, right? Someone's got to be there every day. And it's worth sort of noticing that success might be definable in terms of getting a YouTube channel up and working, right? That could be a reasonable way to define success, right? And so, am I a successful YouTuber? Yeah. Well, failure could be you never posted more than 2 videos on your YouTube channel. Yeah, that's a reasonable way to say you failed at having a YouTube channel. However, the mediocrity keeps things going, right? Once that rush, that high, that success has been attained. And this is actually really important. Had I only looked at my clip before I played it. It's not some zero sum situation. As everything would devolve into, right? It all devolves into zero sum if you're stuck in that binary of success versus failure, or success or failure. That's a false disco toad. I mean dichotomy. So the work we are all still doing, that something allows the channel not to slide into obscurity. And it's important. It fights entropy that would otherwise naturally take over. And sure, sometimes things sort of run on automatic or things become successful without any issue, or they just jump in and work. And someone notices that one video you did, right? Or there's only one video that you did. There's a famous TED Talk by Randy Pausch. It's kind of like a one-hit wonder. He was dying of cancer. He did a TED Talk. He wanted to leave his sons a bunch of advice that he wasn't going to be there to leave them. And he gave this unbelievable TED Talk. It's unbelievable. Famous, famous TED Talk. Basically giving these layered advice that they could go back to and listen to the video, he hoped, many times and get more from it each time at each stage in their lives. Don't know how successful that would be or is, but he tried. But I mean, it's a one video. He didn't survive, right? So it's probably going to live on without him doing anything. But mediocrity is that state that is neither failure nor success. It's the state that most people not only live in, but sometimes wallow in without remorse. So mediocrity could be bad, or it could be better. And often we like to think in every moment that we're fixing a problem or improving ourselves or making progress or doing something, when in fact it's not a binary. Like we don't like binaries here. Like, a lot of times we seem to be moving, but we're just keeping up with entropy. It's not improvement. It's not getting better. You're the same jerk you were yesterday, but just didn't get worse in spite of the change in the world. And wow, doesn't that suck, Muppet Mark? Thanks for the good news. Yeah, but it is good news if you aren't getting worse. And that should be recognized and celebrated in some sense. And perhaps that's what we do with things like birthdays. Still here, still have a chance to get better. And maybe you did get better with age, like a fine wine. We don't always have to be grasping the brass ring. We don't always have to be solving a problem. We don't always have to be learning something new. We always have to get some sleep, where we have to eat. We don't always have to find a new hobby, improve upon what we did yesterday. We don't have to engage in that rat race. We can embrace the good parts of mediocrity, where we're holding the ship steady. Took a lot to get the ship. We can find a way where we're at is okay. Because movement does not equal progress. Or rather, to be more clear, I have a video on progress. And if I remember, maybe I'll link it. We confuse the two ideas. We think all movement is progress, but it's not. And progression towards what? That's kind of the point of my progress video. The world is moving, even if you aren't, because entropy is real. The default condition for your lack of movement, or the movement of the world in general, is negative. That's what entropy is. It is the movement away from order. It's not a straight line away from order, right? And so we get fooled by emergence. Oh, these two things collided in the middle of destroying the order that they were inhabiting. And look, little things came out of them and they're getting bigger. Yeah, that happens. Doesn't mean it's better, by the way. Doesn't mean it will last. So keep up or get worse. And that is to say, revivify to maintain what you have, or you will get worse. What you want is to get better. You have to do much more. How do you know if you're doing enough, if you're getting better? You cannot. You need others. We outsource our sanity, as my friend Pastor Paul says. He's right about that. One of his better points. You should do a short video on it, about 20 minutes. We outsource our sanity. We need those other people. Mediocre is not bad. It's the statement that you are keeping up with entropy from wherever you were last. That is an achievement. You're not still a baby. Could it be better? Maybe. But you know what? Maybe not. Maybe you've reached your ability to be a skillful software engineer or your ability to be a good carpenter. or your ability to play the guitar, or your ability to draw, which I have very little of. Maybe you're never going to be any better than that than you are. But that's not bad. Just because you aren't achieving a new height every day doesn't mean there's something wrong. Someone has to sweep the floors. Someone has to keep the electricity on. Someone has to feed themselves. And maybe someone has to care for the world outside themselves too. Someone has to be there while someone's sick and dying. Someone has to take care of your mother when she's dying of cancer. Perhaps you cannot be more than mediocre. No, seriously. What if the best that you can do with whatever it is you're struggling with is where you're at now? Maybe maintaining a greater state is beyond you. Like, maybe you write one piece of software that's fantastic, or you do one guitar lick that's just the best lick ever, and you can't ever get past that. Can you be okay with that? With having that one thing? There's that whole trope in sports about going out on top, quitting while ahead. Maybe you can't maintain the pace to get better and better and better because it's a Pareto curve, baby, as Jordan Peterson says. You know, the first 80%, takes so much work, and the next 20% takes that much work again. That's true in all endeavors. And once you get past that point, every percent takes more than the last. So maybe after you've achieved whatever you need to achieve, like doing all the things to set up a YouTube channel, it's okay to just release videos when you can. I think I have 3 ready to go, by the way, so I apologize for the delay, technical problems. But I'm okay with a mediocre situation here. The thing is, we used to know culturally, we used to know this. We used to be able to deal with mediocrity in a much healthier way. Heroes used to be the guy that went to work every day. He gave up seeing the kids at the baseball game to make sure there was food on the table. He'd be away from home for weeks. Or the mom who went with less so that everybody else could have barely enough. She gave up her idea of going to college to make sure the kids were raised right. The home was a clean and comfortable refuge in the storm of life, and that things were made beautiful in the place where it mattered most, the house. Maybe she sacrificed becoming a better seamstress, a better artist, a better whatever for the family, for the health of the family. And sure, their sacrifices went unappreciated at the time or maybe even unnoticed by everyone else. But that doesn't make them less important. Mediocrity is where everything else exists. The majority of the stuff, in fact, exists. And look, you can chance success and risk your family or whatever it is you have today. You can live that way on the edge, trying to get better, trying to improve, going after that brass ring. You can do that, right? Or you can live a simpler, easier, duller, but safer life. These are trade-offs. But we must always revere mediocrity for what it provides to us. Among other things, that contrast to see, that safe space to exist in, the ability, in fact, to do more and to avoid doing less. That differential between success and failure. There's a space there. It's a big space. Most people aren't failures or successes in anything. The key is to find contentedness with where you are once you find your limits. Now, I'm not saying it's easy to know your limits or to find your limits. I'm not proposing you can do that by yourself. You outsource your sanity. You try to find your limits or move past them. You're going to be insane by definition, by the way. The ability to be content with your limits, with having limits, even nowadays, we don't even recognize that. That's really important. It's super important. Let's suppose you can make $10 million, but keeping that money, or rather keeping the money flowing such that it maintains, is either a set of skills you do not have and cannot obtain or beyond your attentional ability. Things like that happen all the time. People get something and then they lose it, and they lose it all. Were they a success? For a short time, maybe. Getting something, having a success is different from keeping it, from maintaining it. And you may say, oh, yeah, you get $10 million and you're just maintaining it and you're not going for your next 10 million or 20 million or 50 million, but you're maintaining $10 million. It's still mediocrity. You're still not reaching new heights, and it's way easier to fail. Entropy is against you. And either way, just keeping a success, like keeping it up at that level, it's not easy. Different skills, different energy, different attention. This is why corporations exist. A body that can take different skills and combine those skills into something that functions imperfectly. It's almost like we live in a fallen world. I know my friend Bruce will be very sad to hear that. In ways none of the persons in the corporation could function alone. Steve Jobs cannot build an iPhone. He could never build an iPhone. No one could build it without him either, by the way. Needed the vision and the drive because Steve Jobs was a jerk. Ugh, what a jerk. Can't even find a good account of the guy. But he changed the world. Changed the world. Maybe not for the better, but maybe. History will let us know. Well, not us. We'll be dead. Oh well. We'll find out. There's always something bad going on. They used to use lead on hats. Turned out that was a bad idea. Maybe cell phones are equally bad or worse. So these corporations, they take things and do things that you can't do by yourself. That's the purpose of them. You can badmouth them if you want, but also the world you have is because of corporations. It's because of taking these different sets of skills and combining them and building them up so that the people in them are contributing to something that none of them could do on their own. And look, you could say working in a corporation is mediocre. That's fair. That's okay. It's still an achievement. It still makes you able to contribute to doing things bigger and better than you could do alone by yourself. You can make all kinds of crazy arguments, and people do. And I used to make these arguments, like I can do accounting, I can do programming, I can do project management, I can do marketing. I'm actually pretty good at all those things, but I can't do them all at once. And not by at once all in the same day. I mean, like in a 6 or 12 month period, I can't just switch hats often enough and well enough to just gin up a company by myself. I can't do I've tried. I know I can't do it. Almost no one can, by the way. Maybe there's one or two people out there, but you know what? They're not you. Just to be clear about that. They're not you. There might be one or two people out there that could do that, but I doubt it because there's a time and energy constraint, right? The world is time, energy, and attention. And you can't put enough of it and have enough of an expertise to make that happen. We have limitations. Living within and with those limitations is being mediocre. And it's a wonderful thing if you let it be. Submit to mediocrity as that neutral space that gives you the ability to see success and failure, which are rare outlier events in your life, in anyone's life. That is why one never stays successful. Entropy, plus that sense of having reached a goal, means that the experience of success goes away once you achieve it. I'm not saying anything new here. This is well known, it's well discussed, right? You can note that many great so-called modern philosophers, if such a thing exists, have noticed this and think it's a bad thing. They warn against the nihilism inherent in achievement itself. Use their work incorrectly uh, as a warning, as a reason to try and go out and solve mediocrity. We'll make everybody great. We'll give everybody a college degree. We'll make everybody into a scholar. Rather than the sensible thing to do, which is learn to live contentedly with it. Teach people to live contentedly in their mediocrity. Celebrate mediocrity because you're not getting worse. That's awesome. And truth be told, these people who are trying to solve mediocrity, if you look carefully, you'll notice they are egotistical, arrogant people who want to feel as though they personally are progressing. And they project this, as in psychological projection, into their so-called philosophy, which I disagree that it's a philosophy. They foist it upon the world, upon you, making themselves special in the process, by the way. Who had this great speech on why you should be better or why everybody should go to college. Mediocrity is about acceptance. You must get over your constant lack of success or lack of failure. Plenty of people hate success and they'll embrace failure as an alternative just to get some kind of signal out there because failure is a signal. And they do this in order to survive. They want those signals. But you should embrace mediocrity in order to survive because that's how you survive. You don't survive through success. And you won't survive if you keep failing. And be grateful because success is hard. It's a good thing you don't need it to survive. Whew, that's a relief. Most of your life is mediocrity at all levels of analysis. Be content. Cooperate imperfectly with other imperfect people. Gain the skills and train the skills of patience, acceptance, appreciation, and gratitude so that you can be a better contributor. That way, you can be involved in something much larger than you. And why should you do all of this? Because the world needs you to be better. The world can't be better without you, and the world needs you to be better. That, my friends, is all I wanted to say on mediocrity. I know Sally Joe is already a fan since she heard the early version here. And actually, I didn't deviate too much. I didn't add as much as I thought I would to my notes here. Father Eric, hire a secretary to check your work. Yeah, I know. I've got 15 minutes left, but you know what? I know how to use Caden Live. I bet I can whip out this change really easily. And I did. I did. And I uploaded it right away. Freaking. And I spend all the rest of my day bitching about how no one tests anything. Ah. Father Eric, mediocrity resists entropy. Nice. Thank you. Thank you. Matthew, I'm growing on you? Oh, no. Maybe get some antifungal and take care of that. Matthew, thrown into a mediocre situation where degrees of freedom inhibit grand success. I don't want grand success. Too much work. Better wrestle with the very limited amount of effectiveness on the whole we're capable of. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's interesting too, because Nassim Taleb talks about this in his books, right? Like, yeah, the successful people. He was working at a hedge fund, right? And his fund goes up and down about 1% or 2 every year, right? He's just hanging out. No one cares. His neighbor works at the same firm. $10 million house, $5 million worth of cars and boats and whatever, right? The day comes. This is the big day. He's wiped out, loses everything. Taleb's fund made like 8,162%. In fact, his fund saved the firm that he was working for. Without his fund, the firm he was working for would have been bankrupt. But what he says is, I have FU money, that's what he calls it, because I don't want any more. Because once you have more money, you have to manage that money. It doesn't manage itself. People will steal it. I know a lot of people who've got money still like, oh, I made my $15 million and it's all gone. And I'm like, in 10 years? And a lot of it just got stolen. Be flat out stolen. It's like anything else. You got to manage it. Josh. Hey, Josh. Can mediocrity be interpreted as balance? I don't think so. Because again, you've got to run faster than entropy, basically, right? You've got to overcome entropy. And that's the problem. Matthew, diminishing returns. Yeah, when you're on that Pareto curve, diminishing returns. And so you have to define your success. I mean, that's one of the things. You have to define success like pretty closely. Otherwise, you'll get sort of caught up. And CW Weeks, the best you can is good enough. I don't know why I'm still not into Radiohead. I've tried and tried and tried. I know it makes me a heretic. Yeah, the problem is knowing what your best is and recognizing limitation. I mean, there's a lot of people I see. You used to see this in, Simon Cowell was famous, right, for just crushing the dreams of potential singers. And he's like, listen, These people are going to work at this forever if their relatives keep telling them they're good when they suck. They don't know their limits. You got to know your limits. And most people aren't honest with you. And maybe for good reasons or with good intentions, but still, it's good to know, you know. So that's the key. Matthew, I don't know if I'd call your channel mediocre. By what very a univariate analysis? Look, Matthew, it's not. It took off for a while, and now it's not, and I'm okay with that. I think it's pretty mediocre. I'm okay with it. Elizabeth, touch of gray. Yeah, well, Shane, adequacy now. Oh my goodness, my friend. Yeah, well, you need to be better too. Ethan, nice. A life without sacrifice is no life at all. Yeah, well, perhaps, my friend, perhaps. Elizabeth, this is the best live stream yet. Sally Joe thought so. I hope that is correct. Here's Sally Joe. It's the warm and fuzziest prep ever. I don't know. We'll find out. I liked it. I thought it was the right way to end up this trio. Matthew, what's the entity's goal? The telos to measure success. Yeah, we went over that in the success live stream. You're a couple of live streams late, Matthew. Father Eric, quantity has a quality all its own. I don't know about that, but I don't like mixing the two. Father Eric, those freaks wouldn't waste time on Friday night to watch your channel. Too busy founding companies. Yeah, or living in the hell of having founded a company and having to work all night, especially on a Friday night when they'd rather be out partying with their friends. Yeah, it's it's great having a filter and understanding filters because then you know only losers are watching me on Friday night. Oh goodness, Elizabeth. This live stream is subtitled Sink into Reality. Yeah, well, we're getting closer to reality, aren't we? Ethan, everybody must get a degree. I'm freaking US, man, in the past 30, 40 years. Everyone gets a degree. You get a degree. You get a degree. You get It's like, what are you doing? Ruining the world. Father Eric, who's trying to solve mediocrity? Like socialists? No, socialists are using your mediocrity and weaponizing it against you, right? They're saying mediocrity is bad, somebody else isn't mediocre, and therefore you shouldn't be because we're all equal, right? And yeah, but you can't invent the iPhone. Like, what are you doing? Only Steve Jobs can do that. Elizabeth, this is why nobody should say to anyone, "Have a great day." I don't know about that. I want people to have a great day. Um, a good day is good enough. Maybe Elizabeth. I don't know. I don't know. Ethan, this is a mediocre monologue. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate that. Porter Nilsson, I am trying to understand what this whole sense making endeavor is about. Oh, well, easy questions, huh? I view my life through a primarily religious frame. Are these conversations meant to help people find meaning without that? Oh, that's very eloquently said. I would say yes. This is for meaning crisis people. Lots of people don't have that, right? That's sort of the rise of Jordan Peterson. I don't have it done yet, but see my article on the petersonsphere.com when it's done. It should be done in a couple days, actually. It's fairly well done. I just got to finish that thesis. Yeah, look, there's a lot of people who don't have sense making abilities, probably because they don't have a frame that's big enough to make sense of this crazy world. And so they're using politics, they're using economics, anything but religion, basically, right? And then a lot of people are just leave religion out of history. Like, how do you understand history without religion? All historical events were sort of precipitated by religious views or whatever. But there's a lot of people that don't understand that. So we have a sense making crisis. I think that's fair, right? Uh, which is, maybe a component of the meaning crisis, which is obviously caused by the intimacy crisis. See my videos, video on intimacy crisis. And then, of course, I did another video on intimacy crisis with Andrew with the banks. I'll try to remember to link them there after my stream is done. Safe bet I won't, but I'll try to remember. Matthew, watching you before hot date. No loser here. Fair, Matthew, fair. Josh, how do we contract this with the parable of the talents? I have no idea, dude. Hey, wrong stream. Too religious. Maybe Father Eric will jump in and give you a way to do that. Speaking of jumping in, if you'd like to jump in, there is the link. Matthew, religio, the ancient dealing with the frame problem. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think religio is the connectedness, as Raviki says, but I think religion is the larger frame of integration, right? Of connectedness. And that's the way that it's roughly all worldviews are religious views. That's the way to think about it. So when somebody says worldview, they mean what's your religion? They're not using that language, but that's what they mean. Father Eric, welcome, sir. How's your
Thank you.
mediocre day?
It accomplished enough. It
Excellent.
accomplished enough with the day. I got my Latin homework done. Always feels good to not have to do that over the weekend. Yeah. I have thoughts about mediocrity.
Excellent.
So it seems like if you wanted to build a universe without mediocrity, you would need to make a very small universe.
Why is
With
that?
just the most exceptional. Well, the second it gets big enough, right? You're either going to run into one of two things, right? You're either going to run into a universe that's all exactly the same, right? It's just entirely flat, entirely equal, where nothing is better than the other. Or you're going to run into hierarchy, where some things are really good, great mass of them are mediocre, and then some are really bad. Or if you just had like a small little universe with all of just your favorite little exceptional things, but you still wouldn't be able to tell that they're exceptional because there wouldn't be anything to contrast them against. So anyway, and then my second thought was it's just looking at the lives of the saints, right? Because those are the extraordinarily successful Christians. They suffered a lot. As a rule, being a saint is a painful thing. So yeah, just be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, big trade-off there. Josh,
Most
good
of
to see you,
us
my
are
friend.
given the gift of mediocrity because that's what we can handle.
Yeah.
Hey, Father, how do we contrast this with the parable of the talents?
I don't know why you'd want to contrast that. It seems to be making exactly Mark's point.
Yeah, maybe that's my misunderstanding of the parable. I always understood the parable. Granted, I was raised Protestant, so very possible I was taught wrongly. But I always understood the parable of the talents that the guy who just buried his in the ground was mediocre.
No, that's not it at all.
Okay.
So you've got the guy who gets the 5 talents, he goes out and makes 5 more. The guy who gets a 2, he goes out and makes 2 more. The guy who gets the 1 just buries it.
Okay.
We're given the mediocre option, right? Do you remember what the master said to that wicked slave he should have done instead? What was that?
Put it in the bank.
Put it in the bank and come back with interest. That's a sign that you're at least trying.
Okay.
You don't have to be fabulously successful, or even if it's like, Master, I tried to trade with it and I lost the talent. You'd be like, okay, I'm not going to put you in charge of everything, but you'll be saved the wailing and nut grinding of teeth.
Yeah.
It's the refusal to engage that gets the servant with the one talent in trouble.
I would have rather you tried and lost it than not tried at all. Is that correct?
Because trying is mediocre and doing nothing is surrendering to entropy. And
like I said, I have a brain that was very nice to me, and it something like coming up with just like I said, the neutral. That's why I asked my question. And it's probably my misunderstanding of mediocrity.
I mean, it
I've
seems
always
like I was less negative on what you had said about the balance thing.
yeah.
Like mediocrity is when you're trying and you basically have gotten to the point where you and entropy are balanced against each other. You're resisting entropy. Things aren't getting worse, but you're still striving towards but you still have to strive against that, which is kind of a balance. But it's
Right.
not like an equal balance.
Right.
Yeah, well, the reason I use the word balance is I think of balance as not move. Well, what it is. I mean, if you balance something on, a point, it doesn't move any which way in any direction. It's neutral.
Mm.
It's like it's like black. It's like it doesn't have a color. It's just neutral. It's just
Josh, when
yeah.
you balance, you're moving. You're making micro adjustments all the time. Like to balance, like if you try to ride like a unicycle or something, like you're doing
Yeah,
this constantly.
but that's because the unicycle is moving. If you balance a rock on another rock, it
Nope.
doesn't move.
Even if you sit on a unicycle without moving, which you can kind of almost do,
Like a
you're
balance
still
beam or something. Okay.
you're burning a tremendous amount of energy.
Okay.
It's like a lot of people don't know this. You burn more energy going down a mountain than up, stopping yourself from
Yeah. No, it's really jarring. A lot of people say they feel way more exhausted moving. I live in Colorado, so we hike 14ers and that. But
huge
and yeah,
difference. It's like
yeah,
20% more energy going down than going up.
yeah. But I mean, yeah, I've always thought of like, because I don't know if you guys have ever hiked around any wilderness areas, but a lot of people like to stack rocks and balance rocks. Sometimes in rivers, sometimes along trails, just so another human was there, because that doesn't occur naturally. And so, yeah, and I've always thought of that as like a neutral, like it isn't moving, it isn't changing, it's just balanced.
But it's not a neutral. Somebody put energy in,
Mm,
and
mm,
it's maintaining from that energy state. And that's why mediocrity is good. Like
yeah,
that's what makes mediocrity good, because it's able to resist entropy, either from the energy already invested, right? Or as a result of continually getting in front of entropy.
so mediocrity is better, but almost like in a savings account, you get very little interest back, but you get some.
Right.
So it's very small. It's incremental. It's not great growth, but it's growth.
It's growth, right? That's back to the talents, right?
So yeah,
You bury it in the ground.
well, yeah,
Growth.
and I have bad like I said, I have sometimes I have bad understanding of words. Like, I mean, I just,
Don't we all?
wasn't heavily educated or anything like that. I've read some, but not a lot, and I've learned from a lot of different people. Most of or when I started my trying to put myself back together, most of the people I listened to were, guys like Joe Rogan, guys, shooting stars. You know what I mean? Like high energy, high output. I was like, okay, that's what I got to be. If I want to get ahead of the rush, that's what I got to be. And that. But I've often found myself just falling flat on my face trying to be that. I've actually
Right.
gotten anywhere near achieving that, but yeah. Interesting.
Right, but just maintaining where you're at is a triumph and a victory. And that's what we need to sort of appreciate. I want to address this. Ixnon, I don't know how to pronounce that, is not being able to appreciate the best without contrast to binary. I don't know what you mean here. I mean, a lot of people can't appreciate the best because they don't like the judgment of success, which we covered in the previous live stream. So I don't know what you're trying to actually ask there. So if you can formulate your question a little bit more clearly, because a lot of people can't appreciate people better than them because they want to be that person. That's just hatred of success. Joey taught me that. It's been a very valuable lesson. Keep going back to it. Oh, some people hate success because success is judging them, other people's success, or even their own. Like, because people talk, Jim Carrey, I read an article a billion years ago about this. Jim Carrey got very upset because he got successful later in life, and he was like, "I was just as funny in my 20s," and and people get very resentful over their own success because they think success. They've been told incorrectly that success is a function of the work you put in or the quality of your work, and that's wrong. Nassim
Yeah.
Taleb puts this to bed in his books. Like a lot of success is luck, and in fact, if you don't have luck, the other things don't matter.
Well,
And
no, I don't really
mere
believe in
luck
luck.
can do it, but it's mere luck is less likely to do it without all these other components. Sorry, Josh.
Yeah. No, you're just using the word luck, and I don't really believe in it. I maybe it's probably just subbing out a different word, but I believe, I guess the way I interpret the world is that forces beyond our understanding are constantly blessing and cursing people. That there's those who are.
Providence, maybe. Yeah, that's where I was going to.
Yeah. I've seen how my own, yeah, I always go, I don't mean to always go back to trees, but a tree planted in favorable soil is going to do better than a tree planted in unfavorable soil. And you could say, well, that's the luck of where that tree, the human planted that, or the seed found its
Yeah, but
place.
if you get struck by lightning, Josh, what's that?
Yeah, no, that's
the issue.
Well, and that just means it's well grounded.
Fair. I like that.
But it just means it was a good conductor. But and that. But I guess I've always looked up at the stars, and the star that's shooting catches your eye. And I've always been I don't know. I think I probably am an attention seeker, maybe, but I'm good at getting attention. Like in a room, my voice, like without my wanting to, like if the room gets loud, I get louder. I don't mean to, I just do.
Yeah.
And if somebody challenges me, I'll try and I'll fail just to try. I remember one time I went out to a chainsaw competition, and there was I showed up late, and I was in a rush. I had to borrow a saw from work and that, but I just wanted to wear the company shirt and show up, and I was in the bottom, I don't know, like of 10 guys or whatever, and that, but it was like, I recorded it. I had my girlfriend record it. I put it up on YouTube because that was my day.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, I lost, but I put a cool song to it, and I looked kind of cool doing it. So whatever.
No, that's great. Yeah, well, that's making lemonade out of lemons, right? Like and that's a good thing. But like that's overcoming entropy, because we could have just sat at home and done nothing. I like Sally Joe. I was thinking about this with homes. They are so temporary. The best of houses can be unlivable in 2 years with no maintenance, right? And maintaining a home is boring, mediocre work that any mid can do. Clean the house. You can, because cleaning, nobody knows this, but actually just dusting a house and making sure the dust doesn't build up past a certain point, make sure that the inside doesn't rot. For real. Because when dust builds up, a bunch of things can happen. And not all of them happen, but actually most of the times all of them happen. So when dust builds up in a house, it traps moisture and it can grow mold, or without that, it'll just rot things, right? Bacteria can grow in there. All kinds of things can happen, but it'll just trap moisture in places that otherwise without the dust wouldn't get trapped. And so it'll rot from the inside if it's not cleaned. And a lot of people don't know that. So, and it's not a solution, right? If you just dust your house, it'll be fine. No, but it does slow the process, right? It does slow entropy down. It's the insufficient interest in your savings account, as you pointed out, Josh, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like people don't realize mediocrity is a plus. It's a positive. It's the thing that explains the tyrannical chimp problem that Dr. Peterson talks about, right? It's like if everybody doesn't try to be too tyrannical, and not zero tyrannical, because some tyranny, like somebody has to enforce the rules, but if everybody doesn't try to be too tyrannical in a society, the society functions much better. And when the tyranny comes, then it's just more expensive, right, for everybody. It's more costly.
Yeah, I've always been a maintenance has always been a enemy of me, or I'm just not good at it. Cleaning the house, cleaning the dishes, because I guess I always saw it like I like when my girlfriend moved in. I was a single guy, single dad, worked, and stuff like that. But even on my days off, dishes in the sink didn't bother me. Clothes on the floor, they don't bother me. It doesn't, for her, it's like, pick that shit up. Like, come on. Like, like,
Yeah.
do it, do the thing. And I was like, it doesn't bother me like it bothers you. Like, even if I do the task, I don't get some of, like for her, I tell her sometimes, like, you have that loop, that dopamine loop. Like when you clean the glass and you put it away in the cupboard and it's in its right spot, and you sit down at the end of the day and the house is cleaned and that, you're happier. I said, I'm not. Like, I don't, whether I clean the house or I don't clean the house, like the made bed, it doesn't make me happier. It doesn't make me pleased. And I don't know why that is, but it just doesn't.
Oh no, Josh, I know why that is.
Why
I know
is that?
exactly what it is. You have this horrible condition. You have to get this looked at right away. Fortunately, it's easy to fix nowadays. It wasn't easy to fix like even 5-6 years ago. The horrible condition is called you're a man. But now, through the wonder of wokeness, you can just identify as a woman, and then you'll care about all that stuff instantly, because that's
There you
definitely how
go.
that works. Yeah. No, I'm exactly the same way. I'm like, oh yeah, dishes. Like I just do them when I need them. Sort of. I've done that before. I mean, I try not to.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, males are not as concerned with beauty, right?
Mm.
And maintaining beauty, it has a cost that. Yeah, well, who cares if things look nice as long as they're functional? Like what the hell?
Yeah.
But it's such a difference.
Well,
And
yeah,
you
and
don't realize it until you're in it, and then you're like, oh, this is so much better. And the problem is, you can't explain that to anybody. I can't go to you and say like, oh yeah, when I put pictures up around the house, everything got better. It doesn't make any sense. I can't even explain it, but it works.
Yeah. No, and even picking art. Like I was trying to, when Jordan Peterson was talking about, clean up your room. And I did do that. I started making my bed for a whole week, but it was hard to maintain it. And I got distracted with other things, but I did try to make my apartment be, at one point I was like, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm actually going to try to put, what do I want to put on the wall? And the only things I could come up with originally was an American flag on one wall. And these are the two pieces of things that I bought off of Amazon. I put American flag on the one wall, and on the opposing wall, I put the Live Free or Die flag, the Gladstone flag. And then, yeah, of course, hey, redneck at heart, I suppose. Those were the only two things. And then I wanted to actually have some art, and I didn't understand art. I didn't understand beauty. It didn't make any sense to me,
Right.
and that was where Jonathan came in, and he actually started explaining some of that stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. It's not all like just, fooey dooey. It actually, there's a system to this. And that was easier. But the only art that I can say that I'm truly attracted to is like hand sketches, like,
Mhm.
Da Vinci sketches of like, or like medical sketches of like a heart, like diagrams.
I'm not surprised.
I really like those. I like looking
I'm
at
not
them. I like their,
surprised.
I just like their complexity, and even
We'll get you reading poetry someday, and then we'll
well,
get you out to the poetry conference.
yeah, and I liked Poe. I did. I mean, I was attracted to him when I did my poetry class in school. I did go to college for a little bit, and that was one of the things we did.
Oh,
But
you went to
reading
college? Oh, I'm sorry to
for
hear that.
for a very short period of time, Trinity
Well,
College of Florida.
at least it wasn't too damaging for you then. At least you only did it for a short period. Good.
Yeah, no, it was like a year and a half, and I spent most of that Christians often go to school to find a wife. I found a wife. We're divorced, several years later, but we we did meet at college. She was the president of the college's niece. So yeah, no, it was an interesting story, and yeah, But no, like like I said, I've always had a hard time enjoying certain things that other people seem to enjoy. You know, it was because of to like often you'll see something and you'll see the amount of time invested in it. You know,
Mhm.
you'll see a piece of artwork and the complexity of it, it speaks to the amount of time and dedication, like looking at a watch or looking at leather work or looking at, you know,
Sure.
things like, those types of things.
Yeah.
And I like looking at watches, but I can't enjoy one. I can't wear one and say that I like it. They're clunky. I don't like it on my wrist. It just my brother likes watches, but I like even the automatic watches where you can see the gears inside and stuff like that. I like to look at them, but I don't. I've tried to figure out how to, like, okay, because I started making a little bit more money this past year, and I was like, okay, maybe I need to pull the Peterson move and just dress the part, or something like that. It was a thought that entered my head. It quickly left, but
Mhm.
once I
Mhm.
started looking at things, and I was like, I could never,
Yeah.
like
Well,
like
you have a certain level of connectedness, and
yeah.
it stops where it stops, and maybe you can develop it further. We've got a program. We'll get you. We'll
Okay.
get you set up, Josh. Don't worry.
He's
I want
got
to
the
address
best
some
program
comments
in the
here.
world right now.
Matthew, generous competence leads. Yeah, it does. Generous competence. That's well said. I like that idea. Generous competence is really important, right? Because they open the way for everybody else. Peterson talks about this quite a bit. Sally
Mm.
Joe, oh dang, now I need to understand inflation. No, Sally, you don't. Stop
So
trying to
she
understand
understands it
everything.
now, not need to understand. You added a word there that wasn't there.
Oh, no, she doesn't understand it. It's complicated. She's gonna dive into it. I know she is. She read Rich Dad Poor Dad. You would think she'd have all this down.
I don't think inflation's all that complicated. It just has to do with value. If you
Yeah,
have if you have 10 valuable things and you remove 3 of them, the 7 remaining become more valuable, correct?
no,
So no, they don't. Okay, explain that to me.
no, because value isn't linked to materiality. If
Uh,
value were linked to in materiality, the fact that the Fed has been printing more money than was in the
no,
system
because
previously means that
that's
the
a fiat.
dollar valuation would
That's a
be
fiat currency, and it's based on its underlying value. It doesn't
everything's
exist.
fiat, Josh. Everything's
No,
fiat. There's no
no, it's
such
not.
thing as a
There's a
non-fiat currency.
limited supply of gold in the world, and that means that it is valuable because of its lack of supply. There's
That's
only so
actually
much
not
gold in the
that's
world.
actually not true. There's more
Okay.
people. There's more people, right?
Mhm.
And so the amount of gold we have should be less per person, and therefore gold should be much more money, but it's not. It barely moves at all.
Wait. Work through that again. So there's more people,
Right.
and
Right. And the amount of gold is pretty. I mean, it's not the same, but it's pretty close. Gold doesn't grow in proportion to people,
that's
right?
what I'm talking about. It's limited supply. There's only so much of it
Right,
in the
but it's
world.
not more valuable now than it was 5 years ago. The value hasn't moved,
Exactly. That's
but the
because
number of
no.
people has increased, so why hasn't the value increased? It
There is a
should.
limited supply of Father Eric's Sunday night live stream notes, which make them extremely valuable.
Well,
Right.
if you become famous, they will be. Yeah. If your
Right,
If
YouTube
you
that's
become
exactly it. Because where does value come from?
being famous,
People.
people, it comes from
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
It doesn't
The
come
people
from
overlay the
scarcity.
meaning of
It
it.
doesn't come from scarcity.
No, I think that okay. I could see where you're going, but I think we're pushing it a little too far because scarcity. Okay, so let's do something that humans actually need, not just something that humans want. Let's
Water.
do water. Water, perfect. So let's take water. There's 10 gallons. Okay, there's 100 people.
Josh, water's free
So it's
everywhere
very
in the
bad.
United States.
Let's take
Water, drinkable, potable water is free everywhere in the United States. Everywhere.
uh,
It's
to a
free.
certain degree. I don't know. I don't know about that, Mark.
It's free everywhere. I can go to the park down the street. They've got a
Okay.
water fountain
All right. Where do you live?
in South Carolina.
You live in, yeah, North Carolina. Does
South Carolina.
in the winters do they turn off the
All
water at
the
the park?
states, all the
In the
states.
winter,
Yes. Yes.
they,
Every place I've been has water available for free in public in the winter.
Okay.
Even in New England, every place I've ever been has free water.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know, but you have to usually. Okay. Here in Cortez, Colorado, we have to ask for it, meaning that you'll have to go to a store and ask for it. At the park, it doesn't flow during the winter. They shut it off.
Okay.
The bathrooms block up.
You can still get it for free.
You can still get it for free, but it requires you to ask somebody.
Oh,
and so
you have to ask. Well, most things require you to ask, but yeah, I mean,
yeah. And if you've been drunk all night and you peed all over yourself because you slept in the park, and you go into a gas station, they'll most likely refuse you service. And so you have to be.
They can refuse you service, but that doesn't change the value of the water and the fact that it's free. There's always special conditions to everything, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd agree.
The material linked value just doesn't work anywhere at all in any example. And look, you may be doing this for the first time. I've done this thousands of times with people. Thousands.
Mm-hmm. No, I could tell.
Telling you right now.
I could tell it's well rehearsed, but
it's not rehearsed. It's just I've heard all the arguments. I've heard the arguments for decades.
Yeah, and like I said, I got into Bitcoin, or when I drank the Kool-Aid on Bitcoin, and that's how I understand. As far as my understanding of value is that the supply and demand. It's that there's if there's a demand and the supply is shortened, it increases in value. It increases the amount.
Every Bitcoin prediction horrifically wrong, not a little bit wrong, like ridiculously wrong. All of them. Nobody predicted 60,000. Nobody predicted when it was going to happen. They all thought it was going to be worth $1 million like 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Because it's all hopium, I mean, which the people that invest in Bitcoin are a certain personality. It's a new thing. Yeah, I mean, it was a.
I don't know that that's true anymore. I mean, but again, you can't use the scarcity argument.
BlackRock just invested a huge amount. They just did the Bitcoin ETF. It's at 50,000. Oh, here, I don't know what it's at right now.
I know exactly what's going on with Bitcoin. I don't even have one Bitcoin.
I had Bitcoin. Had to sell it over the winter, right? Because that was a lot of fun. Yeah, that was I don't want to talk about it as a sore subject right now.
Josh, I could have mined Bitcoin when it was $10 a coin. I had the
Why didn't you?
There were lots of reasons. There were lots of good reasons. I mean, it turns out all my Bitcoin
but looking back on it, are any of them sufficient?
All of my Bitcoin predictions have been 100% correct, by the way. Everyone else's have been wrong.
Well, where's it going next?
No, I never predicted price. I predicted that the value of Bitcoin would fluctuate based on the number of people moving it. Right, which is how every currency is valued, by the way, ultimately. I mean, that's the closest way to understand value. So look, the value of the US economy, the GDP increased under Bill Clinton. You know what didn't change? Anything else. Like nothing changed. And the way he did was he changed how fast money moved and who could move money faster. And so effectively, one of the big changes was the banks were allowed to hold your money for 3 days and you weren't anymore. Before that, you were. I know this because I was playing the float. And so people would ask me like, well, if you needed $1,000, could you? And I made no money back. I had no cash. I made very little. I think I was making minimum wage or something stupid. And I was like, no, I could get $1,000 tomorrow. And they're like, how? And I'm like, because I'm playing float. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I play the float this way, and I slide these bills this way, and so I could generate $1,000 of cash anytime I needed it. And I did that on purpose. And $1,000 back then was a lot of money. Now it's like lunch. Back then it was real cash. So.
Well,
when that law changed, but hold on, when that law changed, bang, that whole system stopped working. And I didn't know why, because I didn't have any warning. So like, I got hit with a bunch of fees. I got them all reversed because the banks were not evil. But like the flow of money and who can move it where determines value to a large degree. It's not a perfect map, but it's a very good map. And for Bitcoin, it's almost a perfect map because Bitcoin is based on things like electric usage and compute power. And it
monetizes electrical production.
It doesn't monetize electrical production because electrical production costs money. So So it
But the
doesn't
money supply. Okay, so we're stepping over something here, and I'll put. I mean, we're not speaking past each other yet, but we're stepping over here something here because okay, so let's take a recent event, the stimulus money. Okay, the stimulus money that the U.S. handed out, 1/3 of all the money that's ever been printed in the history of the United States was handed out during the COVID, or was printed during the COVID relief fund. Okay, what are we suffering from right now? Inflation, and they were controlling it by interest rates, so people can't borrow money.
You can't control inflation with interest rates.
You can't control the let's see, you can't control
That's why it didn't work, Josh.
It slows the velocity of money down, doesn't it?
Nope.
Yeah. Well,
Nope.
you can't control the.
It changes who makes money and how. So,
Yeah.
for example, this is the funny part. This is well known and well reported before in the past. You cannot actually have an interest rate under 6%. It's not actually possible because at under 6%, no one can make any money because 6% is basically the baseline rate of cost of moving money when you in and out. So there's a 3%.
So we're closer to a real economy now than we were.
Josh, let me finish.
Yeah,
3% cost of moving money in one direction. In one direction. What is the lowest interest rate we've seen in the US? 3%. What direction was the money moving in? Whoa, what does that mean? That means at a 3% interest rates, the banks were making 3% automatically because the government was giving them 3%.
Right.
They had to be. The system couldn't work any other way. And
okay,
so
but
anytime the interest rate, the natural interest rate is under 6%, that means the federal government is funding the banks at 3%. Or whatever the difference is. And actually the natural interest rate might be a little bit higher than that. It might be 6.5, it might be 7, might even be 8. And so anytime the interest rates are unnaturally low under that cost of transferring money, which is roughly 3% in each direction, that means somebody somewhere is fiddling with the system. Now that doesn't control inflation, right? Which is why it didn't work. And now what they've done is they've said, oh, we have to stop trying to control this because we're hemorrhaging money and we can't actually print it forever because we're going to run into problems, basically. Right? Effectively, what happens is you actually run out of computability. Right?
Okay.
The system can't handle the money velocity anymore because you're, quote, printing money is a flood, right? And floods are not good, any kind of flood. And so effectively, it catches up to itself. Right,
but we
diluted. And then you run into
did we or did we not dilute the supply, which made it inflate? So, like,
but do the math on the delusion. Like I said, just do the math. Do the math on the delusion relative to gold.
Okay.
Do you know what the price of gold should be in dollars right now?
Probably somewhere around $300 an ounce. Like it.
Oh,
because
no, wrong direction.
You think it should be like 40,000 or like it's at 2,000 right now? So should it be like 4,000?
I haven't done the numbers in the last in the last year. The last time I checked, it should have been at least 155,000, at least minimum, just based on the amount of money printed and even the velocity of the economy, at least. And the value of the dollar, dollars right now, a loaf of bread should cost like $800 by any standard of measurement. If money actually had any tie to measurement whatsoever, any tie to measurement, bread would cost like $500 a loaf.
Well, then you're talking about hyperinflation. Then you're talking about hyperinflation.
Everybody thinks we should be in hyperinflation. Many economists have said this. Because according to the rules of economics, we should be.
Yeah.
The problem is the rules of economics are wrong because they think that money supply has something to do with value, and they're just wrong about that.
Well, so we're not defining value correctly, or we're defining it differently. So I'm going to play
defining it any differently because it didn't change.
I agree. So let's take Coke. Okay, so the price of a Coke when your dad or your grandfather used to buy a Coke. Let's use your grandfather. When your grandfather bought a Coke, what was the cost of it?
It
You
was
know,
like
probably
5 cents,
for
right? And they
5
bought it,
cents.
and they
Okay.
bought it at a soda fountain because you didn't have cans of Coke. They didn't
Okay.
need it.
So the supply, the materials needed to make Coke have gotten easier to access because Coke made streams to them for the materials. The
Coke has
shipping routes
gotten
have
cheaper
gotten
because they shrunk the supply line and they increased the supply and dropped the cost through mass manufacturing. And Coke is more expensive. So what changed?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like what change? What thing changed, and why am I paying $1.20 for can or $2 probably
Right,
about now?
because it's not Coke, because it's the indexing of the dollar. So if you want to know
Yeah.
what things are worth, you index to the things that are required, right? So you
Yeah.
index to housing, you index to food, right? You index in the US, you have to index to transportation, you have to index to transportation in Europe, by the way. In other words, you can't use the same economic formulas in Europe that you use in the US. You cannot.
Yeah.
It's not an option. You cannot
Right.
use the same formulas.
Well, yeah,
even though
let's
we're
keep it
trying.
isolated to the U.S. economy because this is an economy where we actually have trackable history.
Well, no. It's just the numbers you use matter. So in France, you can't use the same economic indicators that you use in Germany.
Right.
What caused the French Revolution? Unavailability of bread.
Mm-hmm.
That wouldn't have happened in Germany. It would not have happened in Germany. Right? Like, what? Yeah, because you can't reduce the economy to numbers. It can't be done because economy is about value. And that's the whole point. Like this numbers thing, economists are frauds. I think Nassim Taleb's right. Not all of them. He went a little overboard. He's loosened up since. Most economists are complete frauds. Their entire quote profession is fraudulent because they are mapping numbers in ways that cannot work, and we know don't work.
So
you can just
value
go
has
back
no
and reverse the
correlation.
math and say, oh, all the economic indicators of today don't work 50 years ago. Why is that? Because economics is a fraud. Now, hold that thought for a minute because I do want to catch up on some stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
So, Ixnat, I think good or best, or the best things can be appreciated on their own. No, they can't. Without the contrast of the bad, no, not possible. You can't see without contrast. Technically, you can't see without contrast. Saying that contrast is necessary sounds a lot like good and evil are equally opposed. No, yeah, good and equal are definitely not binaries. Contrast is necessary because you need it to see. Right. And like you can't have one without the other. But the bottom line is there's more bad than good. So they're not equal and they're not opposed, right? Because there's more of one than the other. So, there's not in any opposition there per se. They may be conflicting sometimes, most of the time, but they're not binaries. And that's the problem. Sally Joe, the tyranny increased and then the inflation increased. I don't know about that. Makes total sense. I don't know, Sally. I knew she was going to try to figure this out in a way that made no sense, but we're used to that.
So I'm thinking, I'm having a thought here.
Okay.
Have you ever dealt with a child who's very attached to a blanket?
Mm-hmm.
Right. They would trade everything, I think, in certain circumstances for this blanket, right? Even though it's falling to pieces,
Yep.
no use to them whatsoever. They have imbued this ridiculous blanket with an absolutely, monumental value to them because, it's a childish thing to do. I did the exact same. I recovered a blanket from the garbage once
Mm-hmm. My
because my
brother did
parents
the
were trying to
same.
get rid of it, right?
Yep.
The entire economy actually functions that way. Now, we could say somewhat more reasonable and rational about those things we're pursuing, right? A lot of people put a lot of money towards housing because it's a lot better to be inside than outside at night, every night. But value is 100% created by human beings.
Agreed.
Right. So we've got to hold on to that really well. Gold would be worth $0 if nobody wanted it.
Right.
Yes.
Irrespective of its scarcity. And
But it will
what
always
that
be
means
worth
is,
something.
yeah, but Josh, you and I do not know and cannot appreciate how many quote dollars have been printed. We just have no access to that. And so the value of that money cannot technically change in relation to us based on the amount of it. It can't, because we don't have access to the information. And even when we do, okay, what are we going to do? Math to figure out how much more we need to pay at the grocery store? Like the grocery store is not going to change their prices based on the amount of dollars printed either. So that just doesn't work. And before you answer, because you need to think about that further, right? Matthew, why Austrian economics is supreme. It takes into account scarcity. Scarcity doesn't work, dude. I just proved it again. And the human circumstance. Nope. Like the sand, like the sugar sand in New Jersey is expensive. In Pensacola, it's abundant and cheap. But that has to do with transportation costs, though. Like, and that's the problem. Like, there's so many factors of value that you can't universalize it.
But you're pointing out simple vectors on what makes something valuable or invaluable.
The source of the value is the fact that people don't like getting their feet sliced to pieces when they're at the beach. That's where value comes from.
That's where the value is. And the value is actually in beauty, right? The first money was abalone, right? Which you can pick up on the beach. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, we've used a lot of different things, seashells and wampum and things like that.
Right.
But all I'm saying is that there are certain things that have been historically valuable to humans, and gold seems to be one of those. And now the gold has some properties that we're not really considering here. Electricity is becoming it seems as though that's the direction we're going as far as how we're going to power this world. As far as like not only the generation of electricity, but the products that we use using those things. So we're moving away from the internal combustion engine, moving towards the electrical engine.
How is using electricity for transactions better in that scenario? Because it can't be, right? You're just burning electricity and getting nothing for it. And then it's gone, and it's less available for all the things you actually need electricity for.
Well, it depends on it. What do you mean burning electricity? You don't really burn electricity.
With Bitcoin, you do.
No, you don't.
Oh, absolutely. That electricity is gone.
You account for it. No, you don't. You account for it.
No, you can't account for it. It's gone. You've accounted for it in that you've used it for something it doesn't need to be used for.
Who defines need? Like electricity, you can't eat. You can't. You can use it to make something you can eat, but you can't eat it. You can't keep your.
You can't do that with dollars either. But transferring dollars doesn't take electricity.
In today's world, it does. But yes,
no. I have dollars in my wallet. It takes no electricity at all.
Yeah, but try to give it to me. I got to travel to you. That's an energy expenditure. Or you have to wire it to me.
Only if I value absolutely anything from you, or that I want.
Again, you're describing a vector. You're describing like all I'm saying is that we have to have a medium of exchange.
There's a cost for transferring money. That's true. And if you want to make an argument for Bitcoin, there's an argument for Bitcoin. It's called
that's all I'm trying to say is that if I'm going to trade my labor for your labor, how do we equate those labors?
Josh, you can't. And money doesn't solve that problem, right?
So how do I use it without a medium of exchange that's based on an underlying value?
You don't need that. Barter happens all the time. Most of the economy is barter. That's the reason why economists are wrong about everything.
Explain that to me, because I'm seeing that
most of the things you do not do for money. Most of the things I do for other people, I don't do in exchange for money. Like most of babysitting is done for free or for babysitting in the future, or done as the result of babysitting in the past. That's extraordinarily common.
The favors for your family, right? Even day to day. You could buy all of that.
Yeah, but we're still stepping over something. You ate something today, right? Or you will eat something today. Now, how did you get that? Did you grow it? Did you kill it? Did you eat meat today? let's start there.
What if you got to understand one thing, and this is the thing nobody understands. You don't need currency to run an economy. There was a time before currency. Right? Economies ran on pure barter. The thing about currency is it's more efficient barter. In order for that to work, and I do have videos on all this, by the way, 2 videos on money and 1 on economy, right? In order for this to work, right, more efficiently, you need an abstraction, right? Which is why I keep saying all currency, by definition, is fiat. Currency cannot not be fiat. It's not possible. It wouldn't function as currency anymore. All currency is
then
fiat.
how is okay? As far as I understand it, maybe I'm defining fiat wrong, or my understanding of fiat is wrong. But it's a created money. It's a money.
Fiat is Latin for "let it be done." Right?
Okay.
Gold only works as currency if everybody agrees that it's currency now.
Right.
But
Listen,
gold
if I decide I'm not going to take your stinking gold, I want you to scrub my porch. Your gold has no power over me. I am now the master over all of your currency because I can't be bought for it. I would prefer favors.
Right.
Now, that might cut off opportunities for me. That could happen.
You can
That
say that,
would happen.
but that would make you. That
It would make
like
me stupid. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to.
It happens all the time. I actually know people who don't want gold because they know the value of gold is not linked to anything in the world. This is the funny part. If you actually do the research, and like Taleb points this out in his book, if you actually do the research, gold has remained disconnected from other economic indicators for 100 years. That's longer than most people live. So if you try to use a gold strategy to manipulate the economy, it might work, but it also might not work. Like you might end up way behind.
Okay, so how do you explain if my father had taken 1 week's of wages when he was in his 20s and invested it in gold and just literally stuck it in his closet, that if he cashed it out today, he'd have well over like $200,000. Like how do you explain that? Because the gold sitting in his thing in his closet didn't change.
In the United States, the price of gold was locked at $30 from the time that FDR was in office until Nixon.
Yes, and then we went off the gold standard.
Okay. So it was $30 that whole time from the 40s to the 70s.
Because the U.S. economy was accounted for in dollars. And you can look at the hockey stick that takes place directly after we go off the gold standard and the value in the dollar, and you can see that the supply starts increasing, everything starts increasing, and here we are 43 years later from the time that we went off the gold standard, and the value of the dollar it takes more of your dollars to buy a carton of eggs than it did in the 80s.
Right. But salaries are higher, so it's way easier to get dollars.
Okay, you up salaries, then the cost of production. Okay, so if I increase
Josh, that didn't happen because you're not accounting for standard of living.
Why does a Big Mac cost what it costs today? Because they upped the minimum wage. Is that not true?
But let me put it this way, Josh. Here's the thing people don't understand. Rockefeller couldn't buy a Big Mac. Didn't matter that he had $1 trillion in today's money. $1 trillion for real. Rockefeller was way wealthier than the top 3, 4, 5 people today.
Yeah, I agree.
Way wealthier. And he couldn't buy a Big Mac. Didn't exist. He couldn't get a modern washing machine or dryer. There was no TV. The standard of living has gone way up. Antibiotics, there's all kinds of stuff. And when you don't account for the standard of living, you go, oh, this stuff costs more money. But actually, in real dollars, in terms of how long you have to work for how much food you can eat, it's no contest. We're doing way better. We're doing so much better that a family of 4 can live on $40,000 just like they could way back in the day. And that's whether you adjust the dollars or not, it makes absolutely no difference. And people don't account for that. And the fact of the matter is we have a worldwide, global, always on network. Rockefeller didn't have access to that. Like the standard of living is so much higher. It's so much higher. And there's a cost for that. And the cost for increasing the standard of living for everyone universally, which is roughly true in the US and most of the Western world, to be fair to Europe, although Europe should burn and die. The cost is that we pay more money on average for things in we'll say non-changing dollar amounts. But we've also got more wages. And so again, when you count it all out, we just have way more stuff for the same amount of work, and that's what matters. Like, and the thing about it is,
I don't know about that, Mark. I really don't know. My father bought his house for $50,000, and he was able to actually pay it out.
What was his salary?
He was making honestly, I'm making more than he probably did at my age, but he was like, okay, well.
House price relative to salary is not that bad, actually. It really isn't. Like I bought this house for cash. Why? Because I moved from New England, where the salaries are insane.
Yeah, and you inflated it.
Well, but see, that's the thing. People complain, and I'm like, actually, those deals are still there. There was a house, okay, that sold. It's actually attached to my property. It's right behind me. Right? It sold for $60,000. 60. That was a few years ago.
Well,
like,
yeah,
me and my still available.
Well, I was talking. Okay, so we were putting a awning over my the local father's carport because his car got broken into, so he wants to still off his car so he doesn't get broken into again. So me and a couple of guys were doing that. While we were doing that, the mailman stopped by. Kevin Ketterer, a local guy at the church, kind of does a lot of the snow shoveling and whatnot. Started talking to him, and this guy said, "Hey, yeah." He's like, "Well, we're going to be moving to Italy." And he said, "Whoa, Italy?" He's like, "Wow, that's pretty crazy." He says, "Well, it's just cheaper living over there." And he says, "They still got like $100,000 houses." Now, what happened in my little neck of the woods is during COVID, a lot of people fled the cities, mainly Californians. Now, when you flee California, you're going to start looking around for a state that has somewhat of your same, vibe or whatever. Like weed's legal here in Colorado, it's legal in California. Colorado is becoming far more liberal by every year, and it got flooded with Californians and also people fleeing Austin, Texas, and things like that. Now, when you moved out of the cities, they sold their $600,000, $1 million places or whatever, and they showed up here to this economy and were able to pay cash for for properties. Well, they didn't negotiate or anything. They just paid outright. Now I can't afford the cost of a house around here because it inflates the local economy.
Yeah,
and that. And so,
there's no. That's not a problem, right? But it's not a universal either. It's the local economy, and that's going to happen. And you want that to happen, right? And look, if scarcity were real, okay, if scarcity were real and it applied to Bitcoin, the value of Bitcoin would go down. Right, as more Bitcoin come onto the market, and actually the opposite happens. A little weird. This is scarcity.
Well, it's because it's running out. There's only 24 million Bitcoin that'll ever be mined, and
they're not here now. So it's more scarce now than it will be then. And if scarcity were real, that means the more that come out, the more that are mined, the value should go down. And of course, that's not what's happening. And I don't expect that to happen. But under a scarcity theory, that would be correct.
You're stepping over something. The happening.
Step over anything. I said if scarcity were true, the opposite of what's happening would happen.
You're stepping over the happenings. The happenings that happen inside of Bitcoin, the happening of the value of it,
It doesn't affect the scarcity. The scarcity is increasing whether the halvening happens or not. That just changes the rate at which the coins are minted. It doesn't change the amount that are in circulation. The amount still goes up.
The amount goes up, but the amount that you can get out because the amount that you can get out, because the amount that you can get out, the supply, you can't get it at the same rate. So when we showed up here in the United States, when the Spaniards showed up, at some point people were picking it up off the ground, and like in Australia, they were picking it up. They were picking nuggets up out of the stream beds and things like that. That's no longer the case. Now they're down to sifting dirt, just like we are here in mining gravel to get at the gold dust. No, we're not finding raw nuggets in creek beds anymore, and that because they've all been picked, just like they were, just like what happened. So so in the beginning, like you said, gold wasn't actually. I mean, it was valuable, but it wasn't like it is now. It wasn't $2,000 an ounce. I think when the gold rush was going on
in adjusted dollars, it was way higher. See, that's what you're not accounting for adjusted dollars.
Yeah, I agree with that, but at the same time,
that's the
I
problem.
think that they ebb and flow. It's not exactly a match to match. It's not
it is. You can do a match to match on adjusted dollars. You just have to pick what you're adjusting from. And if you adjust from say non-optional items like food and water and transportation in the US, then you can get a really good read on what these values should be. And the problem is, again, they don't track correctly ever under any economic system at all. Right. Like you can just look historically, apply the economic formula and see that it just ceases to work outside of some window. And then go, oh, well, economics is a failed attempt. It is. That is true. Economics does not and cannot, for the most part, account for value, right? It accounts for valuation, but it does that in hindsight. And the valuation of something like the mainstream media changed with the rise of YouTube, for example, right? Oh, the value of the 6 o'clock news went down. And it took a long time, but now the advertisers have cottoned on to that. The advertising dollars moved away from TV and into YouTube, right? That's part of valuation versus value. What's more valuable, YouTube or primetime TV? Well, that depends on what you're valuing. More people are watching YouTube. Like Tim Pool was outdrawing CNN years ago in terms of viewership for news. Like, well, what? How do you value it? What's the valuation on that?
But you look at Tim Pool now. Like, I mean, early YouTubers, Mr. Beast, Joe Rogan. Well, not early, but in the golden age, I guess you could say. Now, like Paul was talking about, YouTubers. Like, I mean, you're not making the same. You could put out the same content, but it's been devalued because so many people are doing it.
That's correct. Right. So valuation goes down when there's more players in the pool.
Correct. Yeah.
But dollars aren't going down and there's more players in the pool.
What do you mean dollars aren't going down? I'm not understanding.
Dollars flowing into YouTube.
Dollars flowing into you.
Yep. More advertisers are going into YouTube because they're going away from television, newspaper, magazine, because there's more money to be made in advertising your products on the internet.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's more money flowing into YouTube, but it also is going into a bigger pot because and a lot of that money doesn't actually pass through Google because you get your sponsorship deal with the sponsorship a minute in. Go play War Thunder or whatever. That's the one I get a lot because I watch nerdy stuff on YouTube, and so I was going somewhere. I forgot. I've lost my telos. Yeah, Mark, get me back on track.
Yeah. The problem is that when you don't understand what value is, because value is a function of final cause, make final cause great again. You don't understand how economies work. And you can come up with all kinds of economic theories, but they're all hindsight theories and they all only work within a certain window. And that's because people are using material measures of valuation rather than understanding where value actually is. And so they're always late to the game. And so you can look at something and say, oh, the mainstream media has become corrupt. Mainstream media became corrupt a very long time ago now.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? Yeah. But there are still people valuing it. Right? And I have a lot of friends. Like I know a lot of people who have they're millionaires. Right? They're not tens of millionaires. Maybe a couple of them are. But I know a lot of them for whatever reason. Probably because there's just a lot of them in Boston. They are convinced that we should be indexing not on gold, but on silver. And so they've all hoarded silver quarters from back in the day or whatever.
I got 30 ounces of
$1.5,
silver out
whatever
of
it is.
nickel.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know what hasn't worked out for them? That strategy. It just hasn't worked
Well,
out. And they will
I don't
go
know. I
on
bought it at
for
13.
hours, Josh, for
Yeah.
hours about how unfair it is and how their silver should be worth this
Well,
much money. And it's not.
silver can't do that because of how it's an industrial metal. It's used in a lot of things with electronics. So therefore, the price of it
Guess what else is used in a lot of things?
Gold.
Gold.
Yeah, gold. That's what I was trying to get at before. It's not only like that's something that we were kind of stepping over as far as its value.
Okay. We weren't stepping over it, Josh. Guess what happens? I worked this out with Nick, but you didn't see Nick, by the way. Nick's awesome. Fort Cult Nick is my favorite.
Okay.
Nick and I went back and forth about this. One of the things Nick pointed out to me that I hadn't actually seen, because I don't catch everything by any means. He said the reason why gold is being valued the way it is now, as opposed to how it was in the 30s, is precisely because it has an industrial use. So the industrial use should make it more valuable on two counts. It should make it scarce outside of its use as money, right? So it should there's a constraint on gold. It should be more scarce. It should be more valuable, right? But also to make it more valuable because you can find a material use for it. And yet it has done the exact opposite. Gold has been devalued as a result of its use in manufacturing. Also has silver. In fact, everything that has a material use in the real world to people immediately becomes useless as a currency. Immediately. Which is really weird. Unless the material theory of value is wrong, which of course it is. And this is why all economists are frauds, right? Or almost all of them, right? Because the material connections, the material measurement of value never works. And it's actually contradicted by all the data that we have available for real. Like every single piece of evidence says, yeah, if you connect something materially, it devalues it instantly.
Yeah, there's a lot of different variables in this, but like I said, I mean, I'm trying to whenever I have a complicated thing, I try to reduce it to something that I can actually,
but then you kill it.
Understand. Yeah, I suppose.
And why do you need to understand the economy beyond what people are willing to trade with you?
Because I want to invest in assets that have a potential of increase.
Okay, but build houses. Problem solved.
So you don't think we're in the midst of the world's most epic housing bubble right now?
Okay. Now, I built houses. I worked up in Telluride, Colorado from the time I was like, I don't know, 12 through 15, 16 as like a laborer. I've worked on many, many houses and everything like that. There ain't that much money in building houses. Now, as a general contractor, there's a lot of money in that. But in actually
building houses.
Not for the guy. Now there is, because the trades are going up.
If you build it by yourself,
I'm just saying the laborer on the job, the guy actually, or the carpenter, the guy pounding the nails.
I didn't say work for somebody else. I said build a house.
Yeah, no, you're correct on that.
Right?
You're correct on that.
That's the issue, right? That's what. If you want to put in a tremendous amount of work, you can be assured of some money. So if you want to be inflation proof, buy chickens, take care of them, be tied to the damn chickens, right? And grow food. And then when grocery prices go up, you won't care because you'll just eat more eggs and problem solved. Eggs are good too, right? Because you can do anything with eggs. Now you're probably going to get bored.
No, I agree about being self-sustaining and self-sufficient. I don't disagree.
That hard, right? But it's a lot of work, and it's work.
But you have to have land to do it. Ever since I entered the working, ever since I was of actual, around 24, I actually found a trade that I could, do and not, because I knew how to pound nails. I knew how to, paint it and do many things on a job site, but I hated the people, I shouldn't say I hated. I very much dislike the people the carpenters and other tradesmen. I don't like working around them. They're not very fun people to be around for 12 hours out of the day. But when I became a tree climber, I was actually able to get out of that, climb above all that, go up there, do my work, come down, and everybody was really happy that that somebody showed up and they didn't have to climb the tree, the scary tree. And so, like, that's where I found my value on a crew was is just performing the task that nobody else wanted to perform. And that, and so, but that, oh shit, I was stuck, dang it, I was going somewhere with that. That's where I found my value. Oh crap! I had a bother. The same thing happened to me as it happened to Eric. I lost my train of thought there. But
okay. But look, I mean, if you want like chickens and stuff, land is cheap down here.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Is I have never been in a position since I found a trade I actually liked, and it wasn't until recently I started charging appropriately, and I went on my own, and I actually started, pricing my value at a proper price point for my efforts, because nobody else wants to do that. That makes me valuable. If you have somebody else that can do it, sure, I'll step off to the side. I don't care, and that. But when I started doing that, now I'm actually inching closer, possibly, to one day being able to own property. But to your point of chickens and being self-sustaining, you got to have property to do that. Property is very expensive, and it's not.
You've got some crypto value hanging out here, right? Apparently, you value living in Colorado, where everybody's fleeing from California to there. If you decided you weren't going to value that, you were going to move to, let's say, West Virginia, where I can't imagine that the housing prices are all that high, your labor would buy more there.
Well, you can still homestead in the United States.
Yeah, no, and I would love to homestead. I would love to homestead. I've been stuck in an apartment ever since I entered the working economy. Now, some of that is due to the fact of the town that I'm tied to the town I'm in because I got divorced. My wife is here and my daughter is here. I could go on the road.
But yeah, those are different problems. Land is
those
free.
are different problems. Those are personal
land
problems.
Cost is not the issue, right? There's
Okay.
different.
Okay, fair.
Father Eric said, "I like it, Father. I'm going to steal that and not credit you." Crypto value. Right? There's all this crypto value hiding out in what you're talking about. And there was a guy
not can't be captured by economists.
That's right. It can't be captured by the economists. Right. There was a guy recently on the Discord server. I was a few months ago, and he was basically came in, and I even think Sally Joe was there, and he was like, houses even in the Midwest are $200,000, and I was like, bro, I literally just drove through almost the entire Midwest for real in my car. The houses in the Midwest are not $250,000.
Houses in Fargo are.
It's not to say there aren't any, but almost all of the Midwest. The Midwest is huge. In case nobody has a map to look it up, almost all of the Midwest houses aren't anywhere near that amount of money. Only in the cities, and the cities are quote big. The rest of the Midwest is way bigger. You could take all the cities in the Midwest and put them in one part of the Midwest, and they wouldn't cover an eighth of any of the states in the Midwest. That's how small the cities are. Forget about it. Most of the houses in the Midwest aren't that much.
I want to move to New Mexico eventually, but I got to wait for my daughter to get a little bit older, so I can actually, when she's in high school or something like that, it's going to be a little easier. But as of right now, I'm in a town that has gotten a lot more expensive in the past 4 years. Like literally every time I'm like, okay, this year, man, I'm going to be able to finally, make a stride and possibly get the thing. And then, at first it was just get a trailer. Then it was like, okay, trailer's out of reach. Get a fifth wheel. It's like, dang, fifth wheels are really expensive. So,
Sally says you have Cali infection about the land value. Go Eastern Colorado, right? Oh, see you, Father Eric. Go 70 miles east of Denver. That's what she says, right?
Okay.
Small town East Colorado is cheap. Move there, plant trees, create value. That's her plan.
A long ways away from my daughter. But no, I think
that's where the value is.
Yeah, okay, I see that. I could get behind that. I can get behind that.
You got to pay more money to be near the people you want to be near.
Right. You mentioned, totally. You mentioned Rich Dad, Poor Dad earlier. What are your thoughts on Kiyosaki?
I like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's a great book. I think his point is correct. I'm not sure that he does the job as well as I care for.
His whole
I
thing
agree.
is like gold was illegal when he was in Vietnam, and so he bought it because it was illegal, and so he bought some gold over in Vietnam, and he's also a big silver bug and a gold bug, and now a crypto bug. So that's why I was curious because you brought him up, and it seemed like you spoke favorably of him, but many of what he preaches is pretty much exactly what you just preached against. So I was just curious, but yeah.
Okay, but when I read him, he was saying all that. Right? And he based it on very specific things, right? And since then, all of his predictions about gold and silver prices have been wrong. Every single one. And not just his, like everybody's.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
because
understand. But again, his point and his deep point, which is correct, which is
yeah,
there's a difference between income and wealth, and you need to understand the flow of money.
hmm
You right, those you need an education on the flow of money.
mm,
And that's the problem. And I need to push back on this one thing. Or Andu, vision without funding is hallucination. No, vision without effort is hallucination. In fact, anything without action is hallucination. And that's the thing.
well, it's a
Lots of
dream.
people created companies from scratch with no funding. Lots. In fact, almost all the successful companies I know of were created with zero funding. There are very
Yeah,
few.
job.
The idea of venture funding is very, very new. It's 1970s.
Yeah.
And most businesses are not.
Well, I don't know about that because I mean we could look at the Columbus coming to the U.S. I mean he went to Spain to get funded and get the ship so he could get over here. So as far as funding, an
It didn't
expedition that
benefit him.
huh?
It didn't benefit him.
Well, it was supposed to. I mean, he told him there's a lot of gold over here. What there was? They showed up at King Montezuma was wearing golden flip flops.
Yeah, but that wasn't why he came over here. He was lying to them.
That was, as far as I understand, that was. I mean, well, it was to explore new lands and everything like that. But it was also that he believed that it was a plentiful land.
Nope.
No.
No.
Okay.
Well, his pitch was we're going to get to India and have a cheaper trade route.
Oh, the better trading route. Sorry. Yep, I knew that. Sorry.
That's not why he came over here. All the early explorers came over looking for things. All of those things happened to be of religious value, like the Fountain of Youth.
Fountain of Youth. I thought that was I thought that was kind of something he pitched to them, so he could just get over here. But he was a true believer. He really believed.
No. He pitched cheaper trade.
Okay, and then he was really looking for Fountain of Youth.
I think it was the Fountain. It was one of the things, or the Grail.
Yeah,
they're all looking for something. Every explorer to the new world was looking for something of religious value. They didn't care. Well, and Columbus came back, and when of all the people, when they found out what he did to the natives, they put him in jail. Basically, like he was.
So I know that you're a very well researched person. So my understanding is a lot of what he gets pegged for or blamed for, he didn't actually do. That was Cortez the explorer. Is like a lot of the pillaging and everything like that. Because so like a lot of.
Well, look. The bottom line is, if you actually read the history, for all the barbaric behavior that the Spaniards engaged in, and the Portuguese for that matter, was there a lot of it. Columbus's behavior was so bad that they bothered to punish him. Like he really was over the top. He did some way over the top things.
When I read the accounts, as far as I understood, he comes over here. They land on a couple of islands. They start interacting with the natives. He's only here for like 3 months or something like that, and then he goes to return. And while he's gone, the men behave badly, and with some of the local women, and that starts like some heavy tensions between them and the locals. Then I'm not sure what the time difference is, but Cortez shows up here, and he's actually the one that goes and visits King Montezuma on the mainland, but by that time they had heard about him and stuff, and he takes King Montezuma hostage. That's
a whole different story too. Like they didn't bump into Columbus. Columbus never made it past the islands in the Caribbean. So
Okay.
he never made landfall in South America or North America at all.
Well, and that's all I'm saying is that the tribes that existed on those islands, I don't know how plentiful they were. Like, meaning that Columbus may have done some bad stuff, but I don't know that he did it to more than like 100 people. Cortez
No, he didn't.
people
He didn't. He didn't. But again, this is the point. Like, it was so bad that the Spanish bothered to punish him, and they didn't punish someone like Cortez. But like the story of these conquistadors, like when Cortez gets there, for example, it's the restless natives under the king that form an army, and that army is larger than the king's army. And so this idea that 40 people on horseback came in, and that's all fantasy. That's all ginned up fantasy, right?
Well, I know
they're coming in from the coast, and as they're coming in, these tribes that are pissed off at the king anyway are like, "Hey, we're gonna join you. You're gonna go see Montezuma, huh? Yeah, we're gonna join you." So by the time they get there, part of the reason why he's so friendly to the conquistadors, is because he's afraid because there's just huge mass of unhappy people.
Well, yeah, because he'd been slaughtering people wholesale for quite a while. That was one of the things. Like, they said the conquistadors like almost puked when they saw like what they were doing, like, because they were sacrificing that day, ripping hearts out, crushing skulls, doing all the whole thing. And then like because I followed it a little bit because I live in Cortez, Colorado, named after Cortez the Explorer.
Oh, okay.
And I'm Native American and a Native American from a southern or a tribe in central Arizona that are related to the Zuni and the Acoma Indians, which are closer to the border. And the Acoma Indians, they got hit hard by Cortez. Cortez, his nephew, went into the village, basically showed up, was throwing his uncle's weight around, said like, basically, you all belong to us now, you're going to do what we say. They revolted and killed him. And then Cortez flipped out and cut the left foot off of every male in the village, or in the villages. So he crippled that entire culture for generations to come. Then you get into the gold mining and exploration and things like that. And then you get into the enslavement of the Pueblo peoples, which the Hopi peoples were enslaved, and they were forced to build a road. And then there was eventually, like in the 1500s, I think it's the 1500s, might be the 1600s, there's a Pueblo revolt, and that's when they killed all the Spanish. And supposedly they killed a bunch of Spanish and threw them into pits and threw all the gold in there with them. So supposedly there's some pits with all these skeletons and gold with it out in the desert somewhere.
Which desert?
Yeah.
We'll go. I'm all in.
Yeah, exactly. I'm ready. No, there's an old folklore tale around here up in the La Platas. They found gold just sitting in the stream beds or something like that. And so there's a mountain range, and then there's a leg off of it called the Hog's Back. And there's supposedly a giant pit up there that the natives threw all the Spanish, when they revolted, threw all the Spanish down and threw all their gold with them. But yeah. And then you get into like Treasure Falls and like where there's supposedly like this, there's a hoard of Spanish gold up there somewhere, and some boys found it back in the 80s or 90s or something like that.
There's a ton of gold legends in that area.
Oh, that's what I love about my area, man. It's got so much folklore and everything. It's so cool.
my buddy told me he knows where, I don't know if it's the El Dorado mine or one of the famous mines is. And he was telling me about this, and I was so convinced. I'm like, dude, let's go. I got some cash. Let's do this. He's a pretty smart guy. He's like really brilliant. And I was like, between the two of us, he's pretty old though. So he was like, I don't know. And I'm like, no. Between the two of us, all we need is one young guy, and we could bring this equipment out. Because the problem for him was, he's like, you can't get the gold out very easily. And I'm like, no, we can figure this out. Like, we can totally figure this out.
We can figure this out.
Hard enough to get it. And he didn't bite, unfortunately. Which is why I'm doing live streams instead of having people do them for me.
Exactly. No, there was an actual documented case. So Treasure Falls, which is outside Pagosa, Colorado, there was two young boys that went in looking for the gold, and only one of them came out. He had been bitten by a rattlesnake, and he said the other one died. They died of. He said he died of like exposure and everything like that. And he was in a in and out state. So he had gotten bit by a rattlesnake, and they got him back to the hospital. But due to dehydration, fatigue, and the snake bite, he ended up passing that night at the hospital. So they emptied out his pockets, and they had gone in there looking for the Spanish gold. They thought they knew where it was, way back behind Treasure Falls. And in his pocket, he had 2 gold medallions that were Spanish gold. They were actually in his pocket. So the thought was they actually found it, but it was, but ended up dying on their way out. And then there's a lot of stories like that. It's a cool area, the Four Corners area, man. It's rich with history and uncharted history, like murky history,
Yeah, that's a lot of the Midwest is like that in that area. Jesse, welcome.
Hey.
It's good to see you, my friend. How you doing?
Hello. Okay. A lot going on.
Are you mediocre?
No. I'm going to come on and challenge this whole frame. Come on.
You
just
can't do
instinctively.
It's the best monologue ever, according to Sally, Joe, and Elizabeth.
Yeah. If they want to be mediocre, that's cool. I kind of want to improve culture and tradition. So.
Oh, culture and tradition. Yeah, we need more mediocre people to do that. Everyone's trying.
We need less complacency. That's the thing I'd go after here.
No, I don't think we need less. We need fewer people trying to be Elon Musk and more people.
I think it's the other way around. I think we lost the will to live. I think we're a culture tied to things of the past.
We've lost the will to live because people don't want to be mediocre, and they're not.
I think people
satisfied.
don't want to be content.
That's the same thing. I link the two together.
I think there's a contentedness knowing that you're just one part of the great chain or living in the great chain of being. But complacency is is not wanting to clean the rust off the chain, or wanting to decouple yourself from the chain. Here's Sally Joe.
Sally, go ahead, Sally.
Oh, well, I don't know. I was wondering, man, I had a whole thing, and I had to have
You had a kid.
About the housing thing. If your goal is only to build value for yourself, would you share a house with 4 or 5 or 6 people?
Like a commune?
No, just like rent out bedrooms.
Like a family?
No, like
nope.
You're in a situation where you're in a place where a house is too expensive for one person, but you could be the bank holder, you could build the equity, and you could rent the separate rooms. It depends on why you want it, right?
Or would you rent a room to save some money so you can save up to buy the house? Because that's the other option. See, and I think that, to me, Jesse, that's where the problem is. Nobody wants to do that sacrifice. One thing that really stood out to me and really pissed me off, and I'm still angry about because I don't ever get over these things, was John Vervaeke talking about how his son couldn't have a teacher's job and own a house. And I was like, who the hell ever in history has gone from school to teaching and owning a house? Because it's never happened. That's just an unrealistic, ridiculous expectation of instant success. And the denial of being mediocre, right, to save money and build up value so that you can afford the things that you want over time.
Well, because I bought a house in 2012 in Colorado Springs, but the only way I could keep that house was to immediately get 3 roommates, right?
Oh.
And because my job situation changed, the only way I could keep that house ended up being to move to DC. And how did I afford to live in DC and own a house in Colorado? Well, I had 5 roommates in DC, and I moved like 4 times to deal with the roommate situation. And I did that for another 18 months. Then I still didn't get to live in my house. I lived at another rental. And then we had another house, which we also couldn't afford. So we had to immediately rent the downstairs like as quickly as we could. And like some of this is to family, some of this is to total strangers. I had to evict people. I had to evict family sometimes. Like, hard, but it was doable. And this whole unattainable thing, I'm not saying it's a cop out, but it's just like, why do you want it? Because if you just wanted to build value, you can do that. If you want it as a home for your family, that's a different subject and that's a different thing. But then, like, the long history, especially in America, of having to live other places or having to go other places for a spell to get enough earned, that's not new to us. That's kind of what the country was built on.
Well, and how did you end up, Sally? You ended up with 2 rental homes,
Do it. I'm
right?
well,
And then you sold them,
because-
right?
Because having 2 rental homes in 2 states that you're not living in turns into its own problem.
Right, but that benefited you,
Yeah.
right? Because now you have what you have.
It totally did. It was a functional use of assets. But like, I didn't go on any vacations. Hell, I didn't even climb Pikes Peak like for years, for like maybe a decade. Like, I probably did that too much, right? Like, I was probably unbalanced in the wrong direction. Like, the only vacations I took were to rural South Dakota to see my folks. That was it. That was it. I was like from 2012 basically to present, because I didn't feel like going nowhere else until I could get back home. And now I kind of have like a notion about going other places a little bit.
But buying those houses and renting them out, and then moving out of them and renting and being a roommate worked.
I wanted to pull this back to being mediocre. I lived a very mediocre life. Like, even since I've had money, I really don't have past like mediocre average ambitions. Like, because like I want a truck that runs like fairly consistently. I want to have insurance, like all the insurances. It's my biggest luxury expense. Is like, I got house insurance and car insurance and teeth insurance and doctor insurance. Oh my God, I'm so rich with all of my insurance. And then I find out after I get all my insurance that rich people quit paying for insurance because they just have the money to spend on it.
Yeah. When you're rich, you self-insure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to address this. So, Ixnad, contentment with mediocrity is un-American, which is a problem. It's not un-American.
No.
If you listen to the American anthems and the stories of America, they're very mediocre stories.
Any country song backwards, the stuff that they want, they just want the girlfriend and the dog and the truck and maybe a good bronc ride. That's all they want. Yeah.
Totally. Hey, I gotta go. Love you guys. Have a good night.
See you, Josh. Thanks for stopping in.
You guys took my warm and fuzzy stream. The warm and fuzzy stream I was so excited about, and you had to talk about Cortez. I can't
well, look,
to do with that. And
people tie things in together that don't belong tied together, and then I have to untangle them, Sally. That's not my fault.
I only on because I'm disgusted because
we do the good work here, Sally. We do the hard work. Go ahead, Jesse. I've got my artist to defend my position. Go ahead and try to defend your position.
Not too long.
What am I defending?
Your anti-mediocrity position, you heretic.
I never said anti-mediocrity. I said that the assumed norm is complacency. Is actually materialistic. It's not eternal. And I personally wouldn't use the term mediocrity because it's unassailable for the average person. They don't actually know what you mean by your framing of mediocrity. They assume mediocre is a downward spiral. They don't see it as contentment. Without virtue. They don't see the virtue in mediocrity.
That's why I linked it to contentedness, right up front.
Yeah, but I would just say contentedness.
No,
not to be argumentative too much. But.
No. You need to be contented with mediocrity. Like, the two are not the same thing, right? That's why I linked the two. I said that's the fundamental problem. I mean, Ixnad is right. The fundamental problem is contentedness. We want to be happy. It's like, what's wrong with you? Like, happiness is a gift. right? And because of that, and who knows which comes first? It doesn't matter. If people get caught up, it doesn't matter. Is it the wanting to be Elon Musk that causes the lack of contentedness, right? Or is it the lack of contentedness that causes the wanting to be Elon Musk? I don't know. I don't care, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, right?
I
But
would
they're
feel-
both linked.
This is
I'd feel it's more like people just want the lights to always work. Like they assume that living in their city, they do. They want
they
the
don't.
small comforts.
they never
They
think
want
of
the air conditioner. They want
never
the
think of it.
toiletries.
No, they
They-
never think of it. They never even.
Yeah, but as soon as you take it away, they're completely lost.
They panic.
They will
and
never
fall
leave
into
the city.
chaos. And we know
Yeah.
this. New York City lost power for a very long time, not too many years ago, and it was complete bedlam.
So I think part of the struggle is all of our icons have become earthly.
Yes.
So if you have Chief Mid, the Taylor Swift, and then you have Elon Musk, and you have Jocko, and even the wonderful Peterson and his. I often look at Peterson and his relationship with his daughter and the relationship with his wife, and like I love them, I admire them, but I am also plagued with discontent because I, at my age, which is older than his daughter, am not that successful. And that sucks. And like I just shouldn't watch her the amount that I watch her. And like I admire her. She's like one of the peak people I admire. And I admire her for like really specific reasons, like being able to work with her parents. Oh my gosh. Being able to work with your parents, overcoming sickness. Oh man, being able to go against the grain with her diet thing, the mental fortitude to accept that you're unhealthy and you have to eat that restricted of a diet. And like, I know I would do better if I do it. I haven't gotten there yet. Maybe someday I'll be somebody who just drinks tea. But as it stands, freight train of coffee just every day because I stress well. And that's the thing that I do. And I know that it's not good. And yet I don't stop. And she managed to stop and not have her bones deteriorate when she was like just barely in her 20s. And it's just like, but that's like, we have these vestiges of earthly people, and it's probably a good thing most of the saints are sainted after they're dead. And it probably would be a better thing to be looking at saints and people who have already summaried their lives and that are existing in the heavenly realm, as opposed to people on earth right here with us. That comparison is so unreal. And we get that off of social media all the time, these unreal comparisons. And when they're not placed in that heavenly realm, then it's just like, oh, why can't I do? Well, my dad's not Peterson. That's one. So, there's that whole problem. Like, just all the circumstances and all the reasons and all those things are why you can't do what somebody else does, because there's actual differences behind just like the physical stuff. It's not because you didn't have more money. It's not because you didn't have it's all the little tiny helps from all the people and all the people that helped all the people that helped all the people, ongoing. Like it's a whole different thing. I don't really have more to talk about, guys, and now you both went black screened. Well, I'm here. Hi.
Sorry, Sally.
Stuff for the
It's okay. I'm still here.
Right about the stream and come on when I don't really have time to be here.
Why don't you have time to be here? You got plenty of time.
Because I have those responsibility things.
Nah, don't do that. That's a myth. Responsibility, totally not real. It's completely made up. I appreciate that you had made time to come on the stream, and I didn't think Jesse would abandon you like that, but shame on him.
I spilled my water bottle like all over the floor.
Oh no!
Came on while doing dishes, just because you guys were talking about Cortez on the Warren Fuzzy stream. I couldn't believe it. I was like, really? What has happened? No pulling up. No, you guys went further. Just talk.
Josh had to be schooled in some history. Like, nobody knows any history. Imagine all these people who whine about the corporate takeover of government. Imagine if they read about the East India Company. How grateful they'd be. Like,
What
right?
does
They'd all be
what does
shocked.
history teach you fundamentally? Your place in history.
Your place in the world throughout time, right?
And what does that do? It makes you humble and content.
Hopefully.
Well,
Hopefully.
you
A
could.
yeah. Great celebration of mediocre things is to take down like not the imaginary, but like what actually makes you happy from day to day or even from week to week, and then ask yourself how much that costs.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of things that are the things that really are satisfying aren't the things you're paying for, and putting them down and looking at them like, yeah.
Right. Well, and most of the world is built on selling happiness in the future. Like, you'll be happy if you take this drug, or you'll be happy once you have a house, or you'll be happy, right? And it's like, I don't know about that. And so I want to highlight this. Urandu, here I am, happy and content. I would argue you can't be both, but not euphoric. Well, euphoric is a bigger problem. Now I'm no longer content. I'm unhappy. My day is ruined. Oh well. You'll survive. You'll survive. Ixnay, lack of contentment is caused by pride. It can be caused by lots of things. And lots of America thinks pride is a virtue. Well, yeah, let's make pride a sin again. I'm still on board with that. Yeah, you've got some good points. I don't know. Some Americans are being convinced that pride is a virtue. That's for sure. But that's not just an American problem, unfortunately.
Yep, can confirm that. Where I want to get back to is this idea of that the inconsequential things, if you take them away, then you fail to just see, oh, okay, well, at least if the lights go off or the city goes out of power, I still have some means to eat, clothe, sleep, store my things, lock my things up, like you still have the basic necessities, like these extra things like air conditioning, or proper plumbing, like for that matter. These are relatively new. These are not things that are adaptive. Let's just throw that scientific terms in there.
Right.
To what you could see the normal existence or the mediocre existence of most humans throughout time. How do you be content? You actually take a seasonal model to your life. There are, it doesn't even have to be that religious. There's a time for summer, there's a time for spring, there's a time for autumn, and you actually have to live within that cycle. And like you have to have the eyes, or at least the wisdom, to recognize maybe sometimes things just won't grow. Like maybe this is just a shitty season, to use foul language, and you're just gonna have to put up with that until you're ready to grow. Or like, and it's actually often is the case that it's not things around you that's grow, it's actually you, because you have to be replanted again, or as the internet says, based. Like you have to have locality. You can't just be this thing that blows in the wind. Yeah, so that's kind of my slight pushback on the, but it's not, it is actually warm and fuzzy, Sally, in the sense that you can't have any sense of peace without any sense of limitation. And the warmth, like the fire is only the warmth and funny, like that fire is only going to last for so long. So you kind of have to be content with that.
Based mid. That's what we should have named this.
Based mid.
Would have
the based mid stream. Maybe.
I'm becoming aware of slang that I didn't know about, and it's like, I'm so old. How did this happen?
Yeah. Well, and I want to highlight this, Orandu. When the power goes out, it's either an inconvenience or an adventure. You get to choose. Well, and that is the point, right? Where is the power? Like the actual power in the world. I had this argument again. I'm always worried when I argue with Manuel that I'm horribly wrong, but nope, I won. The power in the world is with you. Your attitude determines whether or not it's an inconvenience or an adventure.
And you wonder why I think you're winning. But you did just say I won. So I'm not hallucinating that one.
No, you are. Yes, I won the point. The point was he claimed that power is not personal. And
okay, so you can win points, just not conversations.
Power. Yeah, you can't win a conversation. That doesn't make any sense.
All right, I gotta go. We'll see you later.
See you, Sally. Nice to have you. All right, Jesse. I see I like your point about cyclicality. It's definitely something we have to cover at some point in some live stream.
Yeah, I think it's quite a was fundamentally the pattern, right? So in that a part of accepting mediocrity is that pattern of humility. That's
Well, that's certainly true. What you got to introduce the concept first. So now that we have the concept, maybe in the live stream doc, we just put in. I got a bunch of freaking. Father Eric wants to do a video now with Adam and I. That'll be fun. I got
great
patterns of past patterns, basically. We got that video to do, right? Echoes of the Past, it's called, with Adam. I want to do that with him this weekend. I should have forgot to ask him about that. Yeah, because I need more videos. I'm way behind. I do have 3 coming. I got to record more. Maybe I'll get some done this weekend or something. Because I got going on the road, man. I'm going to be gone in a week. I'm going to be out of here. So
that's why I came on. That's why I came on.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you made it. I hope everything's going okay.
Yeah, we can talk about stuff offline. What can we talk about online? Have we done a cross reference with mediocrity and discernment?
No, discernment's this big 5 live stream thing, and we've done 1, so we probably need like 4 more on discernment alone. We could, I mean, one frame. There's a bunch of frames. I've been thinking a lot about frames lately for hallucination reasons. Actually, you're related to Tarpon Springs and all the excitement around that. But one quick and easy way to figure out, what's the problem of today. What's missing, what's lacking, right? And you could just bring it down to discernment, and you could do interesting things with that frame. Like you can say, why is it that people want the things that they create to control the world in some neutral fashion, like AI or Bitcoin or whatever, right? We're gonna take the economy and the money system out of the hands of the Fed, which is a bunch of people ultimately, and put it in the hands of a bunch of random computers owned by random people, right? Of course, it won't be random, right? Because China is going to own all the Bitcoin miners, right? But we think it could be random, even though that's not true.
What if they just cut the internet off per country, and there's your whole project dies?
But why do they want that? Well, they want that because they don't have discernment of good and evil. And so rather than fix the university system or fix the government by putting good people in it, fix the corporation by getting rid of the bad people in the corporation, that's not an option to them, because subconsciously, at least, they realize they don't know good from bad. And so instead, we just have to bring the system down. And then what will emerge will be good, which is good. Like, it's the craziest, most illogical thing in the history of the universe. But that's what it is. That's exactly what it is. I got to answer this question. Ixnat. All right, look, I have to double check. My editor told me video number 2 that I did on Plato's Cave, because I threw the first one out, is good enough. It is edited. I have 3 videos ready. If that is the case, Plato's Cave probably comes out on Monday. If I get brave, I release it tomorrow. and then I release something else on maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. But it's coming. It's coming within the next 6 days for sure. Probably fewer. Probably Monday. Maybe tomorrow. So just to answer that question. Anyway, sorry, Jesse. Go ahead. What'd you think of that? So that's what, like I said, it's one simple frame that actually does understand. Does explain and predict everything.
Yeah, I was trying to tie this underlying sense I've had lately with when you're talking about you've been rethinking about frames. I've been rethinking about narrative and story, or coming back to me. I think one of the things with and we were talking about Saints a little bit throughout the stream, is that the Saints, in the sense, are a story, but many people are living narratives, or living in many narratives and trying to pay attention to too many narratives rather than the story or the eternal or the telos of their life. And there's only so many narratives you can pay attention to.
No, I don't think you can pay attention to narratives at all. I think that's totally wrong. Did you listen to Story Narrative Archetype, my video?
Yeah, this is another plug, but yeah.
Maybe I'll link it here. No, that video is really important, right? Because it sets out a hierarchy for those 3 words. And that hierarchy is super important, right? Story is the implementation, narrative is the template pattern, right? And archetype is the thing that the narratives are pointing to. So paying attention to narratives would then be wrong. You as a human being should never pay attention to narratives because you're not living in a narrative. You can't live in a narrative. That's ridiculous.
I know, but
what you live in is the story.
That's banana. People they're fragmenting their attention.
Well, they're trying
segments, and then
they're fragmenting their attention by trying to pay attention to something they can't. And that's why I think people like Jonathan Peugeot, who I love dearly, makes a big mistake, in my opinion, in talking about the postmoderns had a point. No, they didn't. They're retarded. They didn't have any points. There's no goodness in postmodernism. Right? I've asked hundreds of people, scholars, PhDs, where's the goodness in postmodernism? I have come up with a list of 0 things. This is a hint that maybe postmodernism has no goodness in it. It's a big, you do the same. It's easy questions, right? People can't answer easy questions. You get kind of worried, right? Explain to me.
Another way to say
if scarcity theory is correct, explain to me why the value of Bitcoin goes up when there's basically more Bitcoin coming on the scene. Like, that makes no sense. Because scarcity theory is wrong. It's fine. Like, it's not a big deal. I knew it was wrong already. It's disproven in every possible way, right? But it's easy to fool somebody because you can give them a simple example where it seems to work. The problem is the simple example is always a one-to-one example, right? And we don't live in a one-to-one world. And so when people give you, like, if I were to give you X, you're already wrong. And the interesting thing is, and this is one of those things that I am going to point out in my video. That's what Plato talks about in this very book, The Republic, right? This book is an explanation of why you can't use that frame, that one-to-one frame, to understand something as complex as justice. You actually have to scale all the way up to a city. And that city has a level of complexity like a class system or a caste system, more correctly, in it. And only in the frame of a city with a caste system does justice make any sense. You can't understand justice outside of that frame. And since you can't understand that frame because you're an idiot, why are you worrying about this stuff? You just have to submit to the fact that you're not going to understand justice. You can't understand justice outside of that frame. And you just
does he actually use city or does he use kingdom?
In my translation, it's city.
Okay.
Cities have a king, though.
Yeah.
What the heck is this?
Oh, he's back.
He's back. Are you allowed to come back?
Yeah. It's my StreamYard account, Mark.
Welcome back. Well, don't tell everybody that. But yes.
My brother wanted to talk, so I was going to talk to my brother. I got to look out for him.
You have to. That's good.
Hmm.
I didn't realize you could come back. That's fantastic. It's good to see you.
Howdy, Jesse. What are you guys talking about?
We were going into
I'm tr-
Plato's Republic, and he was asking me if it's
He
actually
was going to
city.
play the Republic.
No,
I
I'm
guess
gonna
I
blame
did
everybody
prompt you
else.
with the city thing earlier. Yeah, I think again there's a modernistic conception that people have of cities that's not helpful, which is very
There's no center to it.
equality. Exactly.
Cities
There's
have
no
kings.
center and there's no highest point either. It's all the lights
Well,
must continue to work. The
sure.
trains must continue to run.
Right.
Like it's a
But
machine.
here's something weird, Jesse, that I don't know why I didn't realize this before. Twitter's useful, right? People keep talking about monarchy as though there should be only one and it should rule the world. And I'm like, no. Like, read Plato. Every city has a king. Every city, right? What we would call a city, right? What they call the city, what we would call a city, has a king. Now, I know there's this whole thing about city states, the hot city states, right? That's a recent, if you want to call it modern, right? It's an age of gnosis conception. They called them cities because they're cities. They knew that a city should be ruled by a king, right? Cities in recent times have mayors. The mayor is the equivalent of the king of a city. Towns, by the way, do not have mayors. Right? Wait, what? Yes, there are scaled down. They would call them villages, maybe. Right? And so these things are fundamentally different. And so it was funny because so I'm in this Twitter conversation with somebody, and they're like, "Wow, the monarchy is bad," and I'm like, "Not if you have many of them." And boy, did he go silent fast. I'm like, "Why would that be bad?" And it's like, "Oh, how would that work?" Because they're universalists and they want one king to rule them all. And it's like, did you learn nothing from Tolkien? There isn't a one ring, and if there was, it would be bad to use it. Please don't do that.
Aragorn didn't go up and conquer Rohan.
Yeah.
He was going to let the promise made to Errol the Young stand. No, doesn't all
You can
have to
conquer
be
the hobbits
Gondor.
either. That's why
No,
my good
he did-
hobbit is
He
here on
did,
my
he
board.
did swear fealty to him, but he let Samwise get elected mayor 7 times.
There you go.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking about Lord of the Rings.
Well, because it's funny the theme is in there, and it just the misunderstanding of things like monarchy, because people are trying to, and this is what we were talking about with narrative. People are trying to think about things on a scale they can't. Like, you just physically can't. And maybe someone can, but it's not you. You're a Muppet. I'm a Muppet. We're all Muppets, right? Like, you can't think on the scale of what would the world look like if every state or country had its own king. And then you go, well, in the UK, well, what is the title? There's not one title. The person at the top of the UK doesn't have one title. They have a different title everywhere they go. Why is that? Because there's a different personal relationship. That's actually important, right? Because
And when
it
did things
changes the
start to go
value
wrong?
proposition, right? It changes the value proposition and the rulership proposition and the relationship proposition between that monarch and that place. So it's not the same king or queen.
Yeah. And it hasn't worked out well, by the way, that system. Just saying.
Well,
in my humble opinion.
It didn't work when Napoleon did it. It worked before that. It worked before the English Revolution. See my video with
Yeah.
Adam. Maybe I'll link it
Yeah.
here if I remember.
Yeah.
See my video on that, right? Because that's when everything went wonky. And it was interesting. I saw a talk with Peugeot and somebody, I think, and they were, I think it was Peugeot and Neil deGrasse actually on I forget whose channel, but they were like curious about like, why did the American Revolution succeed? And I was like, oh yeah, actually, guys, I have an answer to that. See my video. Yeah, well, there's more than one answer basically, but they're wrapped up in the same thing, right? Like the American Revolution was trying to restore the sovereignty of the king without installing a king, and no other revolution even was aimed in that direction. They didn't have that telos, and that's why ours kind of worked, at least relative to all the others, including the Russian Revolution, which is one of the videos that I'll be doing with Adam, although that's a ways away. We gotta get Echoes of the Past done first. And then hopefully we'll be doing a video in Tarpon Springs, Father Eric. That should be exciting if we
Well,
can
that
pull it
one's
off.
going to be lit.
I gotta do some research on that.
The hounds of hell will not like that one.
I hope not. I think it's going to be really interesting if we can pull it off. So yeah, we'll see. Fortune, if fortune smiles upon us, I will have all the equipment. I will pack it all. So
you have like a omnidirectional camera or like a 360-degree camera, so we can just sit around a table but all be in the shot.
Oh, we can do
like actually talk to each other instead of like talking to each other.
This camera zoomed in. Camera has a big field of view.
Okay.
Plus, you adjust field of view by getting further away from the camera, and more people can fit in. So yeah, there's lots of options. We'll work it out. Don't worry.
Okay, we can work it out.
I would suggest at least two cameras.
Nope.
That's just.
We're gonna have 3 people and 1 camera, and it's gonna be a conversation. It's gonna be recorded old school.
It's not, okay, well.
I mean, if you're flying to Tarpon Springs and you got equipment, we'll chat. Otherwise, it's gonna go with what I got, buddy.
Fly me. I'll come.
If I had gotten my money, I would have done it. You would have been out here. We would have had equipment.
Give me some of that internet money.
Well, the internet money ain't coming either now. I was at 3,900 and change view hours, which is right on the path. Like you need 4,000 to get ad money, and then something happened, right? And I went down to 3,800 and change, and I was like, "Oh man, now I'm 200 view hours away."
It's like I was so close. Video. You've been promising that for months now.
I answered this earlier. It's coming out either tomorrow or Monday.
All right.
It's edited. It's done. I have 3 videos edited. They're in the can finally. We had a bunch of technical problems, and my laptop almost set on fire, and little things. And nothing Microsoft gives you works, and all of the solutions are wrong and bad and done by retarded people who never tested anything. So yeah, it was a nightmare. It was like a week and a half long nightmare of trying to get all kinds of technical solutions to work and actually failing. And I was like, oh my God, like, and at some point I'm going to be like, you know what? I can code this myself, and I will, because I was getting real close. I'm like, I know how to code all this stuff. I'm just going to code it myself. Screw you people. Probably would have taken me 6 months, but I can do it. I can do it. Can't do anything else, but I could do that. Just no videos, no live streams, no nothing. Just head down code written. And I was sick, so I'm still getting over this. Whatever it is bothering my sinuses. A massive headache. That's been my problem for a couple of weeks. I just realized it and started taking drugs. So I'm not on any drugs today, though. So I'm off the drug train. Hopefully it'll clear up on its own.
Which topic? We've gone way off topic. I'm struggling to keep up. Which topic are we?
We were talking about Plato's Cave and reason why it hasn't been released sooner. It's actually, the video's been done for a couple of weeks. Like I said, I had all these problems. Very mediocre. That video is not mediocre. That video is gonna rock. Totally rock. Not mediocre like this monologue, which is the best monologue ever according to 2 whole people.
I thought it was clear and concise and something that people actually needed to hear.
Good.
I
hope it was a good contrast to Success and Failure.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a better monologue than the other 2. This is deliberate. That particular part is deliberate.
It's a pill that people don't want to have to swallow, because we've been given this. Is it Disney? I don't know where it comes from. Maybe it's just the fall, but like the sense that everybody gets to be special. I get to be special, and there's almost sort of like you need to have an impulse, present in humanity to stand out, because otherwise nobody would ever bother trying.
Right.
or at least trying that hard, and we need those exceptional folks. We need the 1% of the 1% to provide their unequal to be unequally yoked to them. But it's just kind of
You-
painful when you realize I'm
No,
just
you
not
need to
going
be
to be
yoked
average.
to them. That's the problem, right? And Ixanon, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I think that's the problem, is that no one wants to be yoked because superheroes are out there alone and nobody talks about the damn sidekick that does all the work. And we've made that funny, right? Like one of my favorite cartoons, and not only cartoons because they've done it in various forms, is the Tick. Have you ever seen the Tick? The Tick
I've
is
seen
a
a little
huge
bit.
and riot. I love the Tick. The Tick is subversive and evil, but I love it. It's like the Matrix. It's like things are like crack. It's like, oh no, this is very bad for everything. But you know what? It's so much fun. And it's more fun, I think, when you understand what's going on. Like the Tick is just a denigration of the hero. If the sidekick does all the work, the sidekick's the smart one, the sidekick's the one that actually does everything, and the Tick is just this egotistical bastard who takes credit for everything, even though he's retarded, basically.
Arthur, destiny is calling. Accept the charges and pick up the phone.
Right. And you have that, you have like, and then you have healthy relationships like Danger Mouse. Danger Mouse is awesome. I love Danger Mouse. But you have all these inverted relationships in the media, and people don't realize it. And then you have the outright lies of things like The Matrix, which totally just lies about Plato's cave. I promise. It's Saturday or Monday. Okay, it's coming. It's going to be released. It's really good too. I promise. It's at least not terrible. I did it twice. The whole thing.
Well, The Matrix is funny too because there's three perspectives that you could constantly watch that through. Like it starts with Trinity, so is Trinity the main focal point of the film? Is it Neo? Because then it shifts to Neo, and then it's like, oh no, but everything centers around on Morpheus. Morpheus has all that information, and then at the end, it's like it begs the question, but maybe Smith is actually the good guy. It does do that. It does beg the question, and then it goes back to, oh no, but what if like the other first two got together and formed the perfect one? And then maybe that's going to save things. And maybe we just need to bring down the system, but we won't bring down the system.
Right. Well, and again, people don't realize nobody ever escapes from the control of the machines.
Yeah.
Ever. It never happens. The machines are in control the whole time. And they're never not in control in any of the three movies. Right. Because they threaten Zion. So even if you're not plugged into the machines are still in charge of your fate. And it's like, this is not a good message. You think it's a good message. And, which is funny, right? Because it's subversive and true, right? The WEF is manipulating you into eating bugs. Like, you're a fool at that point. And, like, fair enough. Like, we're most of us are mostly fools. But also, like, you're not the competent people who are more competent than you are always going to, in a sense, rule over you, right? But the problem is you need to make sure that the competent people, that the brilliant people are not also evil. And that goes back to the discernment I was talking about earlier. Yeah, in a way, you can just understand everything in terms of lack of discernment. If you can't discern good and evil, you want the AI to take control because you just assume it will be good. That's a reasonable way to understand where that's coming from. It's not the only way, right? The other way is to say, look, all the problems of today are caused by the lack of reverence for mediocrity, for the guy who keeps the lights on because he goes to work every day and never does a glamorous job and never becomes even a manager at the plant. Like, yeah, those are the people that keep the lights on, guy. Those are the people you need to, to revere, because without them, you have nothing, right? Without the plant worker, the iPhone doesn't become a reality, no matter how good Steve Jobs is, because he can't build it.
The Rush had a great line that relates to this. It's and the meek shall inherit the earth.
Never heard that before. Interesting.
It's from
Awesome.
it's from 2112.
Of course,
that's a song that takes up half a record.
Yes, that famous song.
Never heard it.
Greatest band.
Never heard it, so it's okay. Okay, I'll be the young one here.
Wow. That's it. Rush is pretty famous. They were also Ayn Rand style objectivists, which is even more interesting.
They got some good
Yeah.
tunes out of it, and it's better than just another silly love song, probably. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, people who are anti-romantics tend to really like Rush.
Yeah.
Not a coincidence, I suspect.
Yeah, actually, that's quite dangerous.
Well, there's a lot of stuff. Like you can, I have this whole system where you can talk to somebody and figure out without them telling you what their favorite band is, and then like that, just like a bunch about their life philosophy based on, or they can tell you like, oh, my favorite band is X, and you just know everything about them. It's amazing. It's amazing how well it works.
Ready? Well, you've promised this. My favorite band is Yes. What does that tell you?
Well, early yes or later yes, because that's always
Early
a
Yes
question.
is, I think, better, but later Yes is not bad.
Yeah, so I already knew that answer, but yeah. Well, and most people that like yes, unless they're me, like early yes better than later yes. I love, and Ethan is pissed, right? He's yelling at the monitor right now, like later yes is not really yes. They were forced to do whatever. Um, Still same band. Lots of bands change members. Yeah, I mean, I think that what that basically talks about, because yes is progressive rock, right? Right. And so it's not within the norms. Right. And so you can expect somebody who likes early yes to not prefer the norms and not stay within the norms, but push boundaries and do something outside of what other people are doing for the sheer novelty of it, because they find the value in the novelty. So they might do something completely crazy. Let's suppose you lived in a world where Christendom was receding. They might go into the priesthood.
Fair point. Fair point.
Well, and I like I knew a lot of people who were into yes when I was younger. Like a lot of the hippie guys were into yes, and they were into other things too. But it was all subversive. One of the interesting things was, I forget which song it was. So maybe one day it'll come to me. There was a song that they all really liked, and I was like, oh yeah, that I know that song. And they were like, wow, how do you know that song? And I was like, oh, it's on the radio. And they're like, what? And we go, oh yeah, it's on the big hit radio station. And they're like, oh my god. And then they all stopped talking about it and listening to it once they found out it was basically on the pop station.
I
That
was
was
super delighted when I put on a Yes song and you enjoyed it. Like you didn't just tolerate it for the sake of friendship, but you were actually enjoying it,
oh
right?
yeah, I love this. I love
So
her.
it's like it's not just a hipster thing for me. I heard Roundabout for the first time when I was in like 8th grade, and it sounded like magic.
Yeah. Well, it is. I think that's, yeah. The other thing is, early yes in particular, those are artistic style people, right? People who don't like artsy stuff are gonna reject it immediately and call it not music. And a lot of prog rock, I mean, that's definitionally prog rock is rejected because it's not real music, right? And people don't appreciate it. And yeah, it's so funny. I was thinking about this the other day, like Ultra Spank. Their first album is just Ultra Spank is awesome. What an album. You want prog rock. That's like the most prog rocky album, and it's so deep. It's a very deep album. And
Am I allowed to Google this? Is this going to get me in trouble?
I won't get you in trouble. Ultra Spank? No, no way. It's a fantastic. I love that album. I still listen to it every once in a while. I'll just put it on because there's some songs on there that are just like mind
Metal
blowingly
band
awesome.
from 1998.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. But like you have to want something that pushes boundaries and is outside the box, or you're not going to appreciate those things. And so appreciating those things means certain things about your personality, right? About your tendencies. And like if your favorite band is Rush, right? Then you're probably less romantic You're more philosophical on average, right? You're almost certainly more introspective personally, right? And you're almost certainly an introvert. All the Rush fans I know are introverts, right? And I actually made this mistake with my best friend once. I said, "Oh, you're a Rush guy." And he's like, "What?" And I started to lay it all out. And he goes, "Well, I mean, I like Rush, but actually," and then I like I hadn't seen it for whatever reason because I'm by no means perfect or anything. He's like me. He doesn't have a favorite band. He doesn't have a favorite band, right? He's got like 17 or 18 of them, like I do. Like, oh, favorite band? Like, what are you talking about? And you'll notice actually, and this happens to me all the time. People be like, "What are your top 10 favorite movies?" And I'm like, I can't.
Oh, that's
do that.
easy. That's
No,
easy.
I can't do it.
That's easier for me.
I can't.
Music's
I can't
way
even.
hard.
I can't list things that way. But once you,
I
get
just give them
going,
10. I just go, here's 10. There's no in no particular. They're all
I
great.
couldn't even do that because in cases where I can come up with 10 movies, it will never be the same lists ever. They might not even have any crossover because I don't think in that way. And even if you narrow it down to genre, like what are your top 3 favorite comedy films of all time? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I can't answer a question that way. I don't even.
What's your number one movie about Harvard?
Right. Like, right. I mean, I'd have to go with Good Will Hunting, right? Because
so it's not Real Genius. No, sorry.
Well,
that's MIT. Ugh.
Baby
Real
Geniuses.
Was West Coast version of MIT.
Baby Geniuses.
Yeah. Right. Well, and that's the thing. Like, what's your right? And yeah, I mean, Real Genius is very much about MIT culture and all that, even though it's not set at MIT. And they did that back then for copyright reasons and things, but whatever. They were being cheeky. But I can't do lists like that. I can't. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
I don't have salient things that sort of stick out. And even The Matrix, as much as I love that movie and I've watched it a zillion times, is not like my favorite movie. Right? Because I far prefer Good Will Hunting, which I think is one of the greatest movies ever made for lots of reasons. And if
but there's something about The Matrix that's like it's like the snake, the apes just sitting there watching the snake for like 12 hours straight.
Yeah. Well, it's the thing about The Matrix is it appeals to your ego in ways you don't understand. And you just don't understand, like, do people have ideas or do ideas have people? There's a spirit in The Matrix that is so attractive because if you want the creature, because it's not a snake initially, that entices you to eat of the tree, that's The Matrix in movie form. That it is that creature.
If you could just take the red pill for yourself.
It's a material. Yeah, we could do this for days. Right. The material is given to you.
It was a false dichotomy too. Yeah.
The material is given to you by the manifestation of the prophet sent by the actual prophet. Right? Who's actually the mother created by the father, right? That built.
This is like a Gnostic hierarchy right here.
Yeah. It's the demigod, basically. Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah. It's the ultimate Gnostic movie.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah. Nobody sees this. That's why Jesse and I really do need to buckle down this year and get that done. Because like he and I could go.
People aren't ready. They're not ready, Mark. I don't think they hate the system enough to really understand how deep the rabbit hole goes. To use this, to steal that phrase back from that movie.
Right.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of problems. All that the inversions, the number, like if you see something in the Matrix, assume it's an inversion.
Yeah.
The number of things in the Matrix that aren't actually inversions is so vanishing, it might even be zero. Like, I'd have to actually go through like scene by scene and look for a not inverted thing in that movie. And if you didn't see that, fair enough. Like, we're all Muppets. But like every scene pretty much, it's just all inversions.
Well, even the cityscape itself, in that it's half shot here in Sydney, but it's made to look like Chicago. But it's not Chicago, and it's not Sydney either, because it's this weird hybrid.
Right.
It kind of looks like Hong Kong sometimes.
Exactly.
Like, or yeah, you're like, where is this place actually located? Like you're like
Right.
The Shining. The Shining was the first
Right.
movie to really do this. It was to break your, getting back to mediocrity, breaking your concept of locality. Like, where are you? What are the signs and signals of this place, and how do you fit into them, and how do you accept them? And even then, there's that whole thing about, I used to eat there, it had really good chicken, and then it's like, was that even real? You like literally,
What does that mean?
No, exactly.
What does that mean?
Yeah. Exactly, that's right. Yeah. What does that mean?
He says, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And what did she say? She says it means no one can, basically, she says no one can tell you about your experience. No one can invalidate your experience. It's like,
what is that? Wow.
Wow.
That sneaky little worm screwing you.
Right. And then what does Dr. Peterson say? Dr. Peterson says you can go back in your past and think about it differently and remove your trauma. Those are two different messages, my friend. One's an inversion of reality. You can go back in the past, understand it differently, and remove trauma. Right? And what that is him on the verge of trauma from experiencing reality outside the cave, which is all a lie. Right? And then she's pulling him back and saying, no, your past is fine. It's a total inversion of the misapprehension of the Plato's Cave individualist story, which is a lie, by the way. Video coming soon. Promise.
Yeah, I've actually had to stop thinking about the Matrix now. Coming back, making me.
It's like a trap.
It is. Well,
it's like it's a Chinese puzzle box that becomes more complicated the more you unfold it.
It really. Like
it's Dune. It's the Dune box. It's actually a testing. How much pain are you willing to endure? And your test of virtue or spirituality is, can you actually overcome the pain that this movie is going to not be affected by?
It's like an upside down Bible, right? Because we haven't gotten to the Bible yet, bottom of the Bible yet.
Right.
But the more you learn about the Bible, the more you live it out, the more the holier you become. Whereas I don't know what happens when you start embodying the Matrix, but nothing good.
Well, I mean, I think
my entire generation. There you go.
I think,
millennials. There you go.
I think the case Jesse's gonna make when we do that video is that look around. This is what happens.
They just start cutting their dicks off, huh?
Pretty much.
It's like there is a character in the film called Switch, and then they made that connection when they publicized the full film.
And look what they did to themselves.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that, but yeah.
The movie. I don't know how everybody missed this, but oh my goodness, this was as clear as it gets.
Made Speed Racer, yes.
Like, I'm not kidding when I say, like, Jesse and I could talk about the Matrix right now, unrehearsed for 7 straight hours and not even come close. Absolutely. That's why we need to do the research and the notes first, because otherwise it will be too long a thing, and people will get bored or
even just context setting for me. And now, like, the document that I put together, I was like, hey, Mark, here's all the things that I would like to do to context setting. I'm like, this is a 2-hour stream. Justin, how did this thing come to be? And what does it mean in its locality, and what effect has it had? And, like, we're not even talking about the thing in of itself and what it glorifies, just how did this thing came to be and what effect has it had? And that's unique in itself. Which is The
So it's
thing that
gonna
I would
turn
put
into
forward
the
is it's a
androgynous. Got
cultural
it.
frame. It's a cultural myth, essentially. It's a foundational myth. That's the term, technical term. Yeah.
Foundational
And
myth for Silicon Valley tech bros. It's a foundational myth for transgender activists. Foundational myth for 21st century communism. Foundational myth
of
for
the
probably
internet.
just I could point at anything I don't like and say that's inspired by the Matrix at this point because it was huge.
Right. Well, it's one of those weird things. This doesn't happen very often. It's one of those weird things that was influenced everything in, we'll say, the most important way, like the most important, like small sliver people, but was also popular. Right. And that's very rare. Usually things that are popular do not have scaled influence
Mhm,
because most scaled influence comes from a tiny number of people.
mhm.
Right. And that's noted all over the place. This is why conspiracy theorists, quote, have a point, right? Like, oh my goodness, there really were 10 people in a room with cigars and they really did this thing. Yep, that actually, like MK Ultra, great example, right? It's 5 people or
Manhattan
something.
Project.
The Manhattan Project, yeah. There's all kinds of things like that are real, right? That
We just
actually
glorified
happen.
it with Oppenheimer too. Literally, we just glorified it with Oppenheimer. Like
Right.
here's 10 people, maybe 12. There's that number again that essentially changed fundamental nature of power politics, geopolitics, and spirituality because we,
Right.
yeah.
Well, created the military-industrial complex and
Well,
made
yeah,
it so
yeah.
big that it had a life of its own, if you want to put it that way, and that
Mhm.
continues. That happened. More happened before that, or say the thing that caused that to happen has even more of that, by the way, that we're still living in. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of of things like that. But the Matrix is unique because it's a pop culture icon as well, and everybody references it. But if you listen closely to the
Indirectly too.
Matrix references that people use, they either use the same 4 references or they use something completely different that's really obscure in the movie. So what you see, and you see this culminated in the Barbie, I don't know what it is. It's not a movie. In the Barbie phenomena, that's
Mirror.
definitely not a movie
It's a
by
mirror.
any
It's a
standard.
mirror. The
Um,
mirror that is Barbie.
yes, people see what they see, and everybody's seeing something different. And that phenomena first starts with the Matrix, partly because it's so deep. So it's very much like taking Plato's book 7, which is where the cave is, right, and putting it on the screen in that way. There's a depth to it that, you can watch it. I don't know. I probably haven't watched it 100 times, but I've probably watched it 50 and still get new stuff out of it. Like you can do that with that movie. And then I can take somebody who's watched it 100 or 200 times and show them stuff they didn't notice, which we did earlier. And I can do it again and again and again. I can do it probably for a very long time, probably for weeks on end. It's not that hard. So the question is, well, what the hell is that? That's actually a really good question. What the hell is that? Because it's not your standard run of the mill movie. It's not your standard great film. Like even Casablanca. Well, thank you, Father Eric. That was required. Even Casablanca, which is a great film, doesn't have that quality. It has a better, different depth, right? But it has a depth, whereas the Matrix causes a flood. And I think that's the fundamental difference. All three
What does
movies.
Casablanca actually point to? The topic of the stream. He has to go back to a normal life, or to a life of contentment, that he did the right thing. Yeah.
Mediocrity and what that enables. Like his mediocrity enables all of this stuff. And the mediocrity of the police chief, who's, he's not a good guy. He's not a good guy. But in the end, his goodness wins out. And the 2 good, mediocre guys effectively save the world, right? And nobody knows about them. And no one's supposed to know about them. And we've lost the romanticism around that. That's the proper area for romanticism, is in the mediocre. right? That's where romanticism belongs. Romanticism does not belong in the hero. The hero suffers and dies, usually an early death. Like, it's not romantic. The hero is a tragic figure, right? He's not a romantic figure. The romantic figures are the ones supporting the hero. We've lost the reverence for the sidekick. The sidekick and the infrastructure, like, and you lose this in something like Batman. Batman builds the Batcave almost entirely by himself. I mean, he's got the help of the money and all that, but he's the genius that comes up with the idea to have all this stuff. And the background person who does all the actual work, or most of the actual work, is backgrounded. And sure, he has a sidekick, and his sidekick is very helpful, but ultimately it's him. And of course, that starts with the Ubermensch, right? Which is more Nietzsche destroys the universe garbage in Superman. Superman comes directly from Nietzsche, explicitly directly, right? And he starts that trend, and Batman continues it in a more American way, using the frame of money instead of the quote supernatural alien frame that Superman uses. Right? I could have put all this in my Batman versus Superman video. Maybe I'll link that here if I remember. Right? But like, that theme is there. It just manifests two different ways. Right? One is in say the German way, and the other's in the American way. It's the same theme. And that theme is this individualistic, overcomes everything, individual in charge, no need for help. Right? Because the help is not highlighted. It's not revered. It's not revivified, especially not in Superman. A little bit more so in Batman, but not as much as it needs to be.
And that brings us back to the book of Genesis, as it always does. So Adam finds himself alone in the garden. And what does the Lord provide him with? Well, first he goes for the animals, and the animals are fine.
Animals are
But
fine.
they don't quite scratch the itch there. So finally, the Lord provides Adam with, I'm just pulling up the Bible here right now, a helper fit for him. A helper fit for him. That is what the Lord provides him. And since we've talked about it before, this is it the desecration of the feminine that we're going back to here?
Yeah. 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 Well, when you try to make the implicit explicit, you destroy it. And that's a problem. And I want to highlight this. Ixnon. People sort of understand the sidekick via Samwise and Loader. I don't think anybody understands Samwise and Loader. I think that, and I talked about this when I talked with Andrew with the Bangs about the intimacy crisis. That video is called As Deep as a Puddle. Interesting name. I don't know why she named it that way. Effectively, people are believing that Sam and Frodo are gay because we live in a flattened world. And of course they are, because they have to have a material relationship. It can't be the relationship of deep friendship or servitude, right, in mediocrity, because Sam is in many ways mediocre. And part of that story is Sam becoming more than mediocre, right? Like, he, at one point, he carries Frodo and the ring, right? I mean, he's the hero of Lord of the Rings is Sam. It's not Frodo. Right? And look, there are many heroes in Lord of the Rings, right? Because Merry and Pippin both go through transformations. Right? I mean, they're basically annoying children in the beginning who are doing nothing but causing trouble and basically stealing. And so that change is, partly what this is all about.
In the movie version, you're correct. Merry and Pippin are a little more useful in the book.
Yeah, they don't start out useful though.
They were helping Frodo move. They were pretty useful in that. They had figured out that he was planning on leaving the Shire. Those
True.
sorts of things. They were a little more competent. It's the limitations of the medium to just have them be full buffoon into.
Well, yeah. I think the other thing, and maybe, and this is my final thing, it also ties back into the mediocrity. Is it Merry or Pippin that lights the fires of Gondor? That's not actually in the book.
Right.
No, Gondor just did that because they're
yeah.
yeah.
But what Peter Jackson did is he extracted something that's probably the best part of the whole 9 hours of the movie, which is that you have to make signals. You have to, like, it's the smallest people working together to make the signals that bind people together.
And it wouldn't have worked if we didn't have a bunch of people freezing their butts off at the top of a mountain, looking out for the fire in case this should happen.
They're all mids, and hobbits are all mids. Hobbits are a statement of mids, and Lord of the Rings is a statement of reverence for the mids. The mids saved the world explicitly in the Lord of the Rings. That's why there's a hobbit on my board. Well, actually, it's all Sally Jo's fault because she mentioned it, but I'll take credit for it anyway. She'll never know. So that, I mean, that's the key, is that the mids save the world because they hold the world together. And so that the heroes can stand out, right? Because there's no heroes without mids anyway. Like, there's no heroes without the mediocre. And we need to have reverence for that. We need to re-enchant that effectively. And I think, Jesse, we have a name for our Matrix stream: Unraveling the Gnostic Matrix Alignment. And Matthew claims this got good while he was gone. I don't know, Matthew. I thought it was always good the whole time, but if you say so. Jesse, you're good. You're gonna leave, right? So
I'm gonna go.
You have parting thoughts on mediocrity? Do you have any mediocre thoughts on mediocrity?
Don't listen to jazz. There you go. If the traditional music of your time, right? The music that's the spirit of what you entertain in your home, has to be of the certain time and place. And if you're inviting in this sort of spirit of chaos, which chaos is against mediocrity, right? Then you're entertaining something in your house that is not beneficial to you. Now, by jazz, I mean actually like bebop, progressive, hard jazz. I'm not talking about big band or, crooning or whatever. That's a whole different thing. But intuitively, I think the people that hear this should know this, that there are certain forms of narrativization of patterns that you should not entertain. So,
or floods of chaos.
Floods of chaos, and that's going to actually affect your sense of harmony and contentment within your house. There are certain times to entertain certain things, but that's probably not something you want to let into your own home. So, bit of a random thought, but that's what just came to me. So, there you go. My final thought on mediocrity, especially as a musician.
All right, sir. Thank you for that.
Take care.
You too,
nice
sir.
To see you all. Bye.
Father Eric, do you have closing mediocre thoughts?
I don't think they're mediocre. And they're not mine. Remove from me vanity and lying words. Give me neither beggary nor riches. Give me only the necessities of life. Lest perhaps being filled, I should be tempted to deny and say, "Who is the Lord?" Or being compelled by poverty, I should steal and forswear the name of my God.
Wow. That wasn't mediocre.
No, it was not.
I like it, though. I like it. Yeah, I think I have to close down this mediocrity stream, though, because it's been 3 hours. I think that we've lost that reverence for mediocrity, and we don't want to be mediocre. Like, we're desperate to not be mid.
We need to put up more Norman Rockwell paintings.
Right. We need more mid. We need more mediocrity, right? Because that is what holds the world together and enables everything else. Can't have outstanding people without not outstanding people. You wouldn't be able to see them at all. It just
So
if
your
everyone's a
homework
hero, there are no heroes.
is to throw away your jazz records and listen to Fanfare for the Common Man.
I like it. I like it. Or sing the national anthem if you're in the US or something, right? Like these
Or
are the
whatever your
sort of
national anthem is. All of you
yeah.
strange foreigners, you sing, don't you?
Everyone should sing more. That's well, and we should. Yeah, we shouldn't prefer the music of others. We should prefer the music we make ourselves, even if we're horrible singers. And I think that's one of those interesting lessons that
Would
Adam from
approve.
Ireland keeps harping on. He says you should sing in church even if you can't sing well, because the point is the participation. And that's the problem, is that people aren't participating because they feel as though they can't be the best or near the best. But participation is all about doing it in spite of not being the best, right? It's doing the thing that maybe nobody else wants to do. Right? That's where Dr. Peterson says all the opportunity is, right? And so a lot of opportunity is in the mediocre. You want to make a lot of money, package stuff for a living. Package other people's stuff. Don't make your own stuff. Package other people's stuff. You'll make a lot of money, right? And you can poo-poo middlemen or whatever. Middlemen make a lot of money. Why? Because nobody wants to do that work, and they're willing to do it. And they're in the middle of the supply chain, and yeah, but that's where the value is. And with that, since Father Eric is yawning, he's probably up past his bedtime. Have a lovely week, everyone. I won't see you for at least 2 weeks unless we do a live stream while we're in Tarpon Springs, which we're going to try to do. But I don't know what time that will be. We have not picked the time on this yet. But hopefully we'll be doing a surprise live stream on a topic that is near and dear to Father Eric's heart. And I will be streaming that on my channel if we can manage to get that stream done. And Adam will be there too. So it'll be like the 3 best people ever for live stream, all live streaming at once.
Pirate Captain Father Eric and Lore Master Adam.
Lore Master Adam. Yes. Yes, he is going to be the lore master for this whole thing. Hopefully he gets his homework done by the time he gets to fly out to Tarpon Springs to be with us all. And thank you very much, everybody. Have a lovely next couple of weeks. Hope to do a live stream from Tarpon Springs that hopefully you'll all be able to join in on, or at least view after the fact. Plato's Cave is coming, probably Monday, maybe tomorrow. We'll see how I feel about how many other videos I need to do, because I want to try to get back on a regular release schedule, and it's just been an absolute nightmare the past 3 months. But hopefully things can normalize now. So take care, be mediocre, and rejoice in that, and enjoy and be well. In fact,